And good evening, everybody, on this wonderful Sunday evening. Welcome to the interview room. We are so grateful to have each and every one of you here. And as you can tell, we brought in the A-team tonight to just have an amazing conversation about the Nancy Guthrie case. But before we jump in, I just want to thank everyone out there who has supported our channel for the last 5 years. We are so grateful to each and every one of you. We just hit 35 million views, and that is a direct result of your support. And for that, we are grateful. As always, we only ask one thing over here, and that's if you hit that subscribe button and the button, and then that like, thumb, that drives the algorithm, which continues to help us grow. So thank you so much for being here. And of course, our mods who keep this channel running smoothly and our chat classy. As you can tell, we've got what an amazing panel here tonight. Up in the upper left-hand corner, you know her well. She's a living legend. Dr. Ann Burgess is with us. And she, if you don't know her, you're going to know her in about 30 seconds because she has a bio that is quite impressive. And I'm just going to give you some of the highlights. But Dr. Ann is a pioneering forensic nurse and internationally recognized expert in victimology, trauma assessment, and abuse patterns. She is renowned for her co-founding work as one of the first hospital-based sexual assault crisis programs, and for working collaboratively and setting up some of the most advanced programs in the FBI's behavior science unit. And she was a modern pioneer development through studies of serial offenders, sexual assault offenders, and of course, trauma responses. And that all came from her work, not only in the many hospitals and the law enforcement agencies that she assisted throughout the years. That work inspired many books, many published papers, and it also inspired the recent Netflix series or Netflix show called The Mindhunter, and it was a Hulu Mastermind and the Hulu Mastermind. Am I getting that right, Ann?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
On the right path here. And if you have not seen her books, this is one of them. She has a couple of them out there, and this is Killer by Design, to think like a killer. Okay, and by the way, all of our guests here, their links to their podcast or their bios are all going to be below. So make sure to drive this book through the roof, and then below. And well, first of all, thank you, Ann, for taking your time out.
Thank you, Chris. I'm delighted to be here.
Yes, and I'm delighted because she is also in our Cold Case Foundation, and she's also at Boston College, and so we get to rub shoulders at different times. So thank you for your time this evening. To my left here is Dr. Gary Bricado. Many of you know him. He is a forensic clinical psychologist, a researcher, and author. He specializes in violent crimes, and he has the largest database of over 119 years worth of research in mass killings. So what do we want to call that, Gary?
mass mass murder. You're talking about the database I co-created with Dr. Burgess at Columbia Medical Center.
Yeah. So, he goes on a lot of dinner dates. And of course, he's got 119 years worth of data to speak about there. He's also the co-author of the New Evil, which just went #1 on Amazon. In what category, Gary?
In forensic psychology. You can get it anywhere, but on Amazon it was the #1 bestseller in forensic psych. I was thrilled. But it's still holding on.
So we're going to make these two position for the #1 spot this evening. Okay, we're going to make them position for the #1 spot. And up above me here is our new friend. We are delighted that she's here. She's taken, her time, even though she wasn't feeling too well. But we're grateful that Maureen O'Connell is here. She's a great artist. You got to love that piece of the puzzle. Right from the get-go. She is a retired special agent with the FBI, spending 25 years. And that experience, goes into not only the elite evidence response team, but she has also been in some of the technical issues with the FBI, where she traveled around the world, assembling cases such as kidnapping, missing persons, homicides, bombings, you name it, she's done it. And her expertise, we are so grateful to have her on this panel tonight to bring into maybe connecting some of the dots that aren't necessarily being talked about out there. And she is just an amazing human being. You've seen her probably on Megyn Kelly and other shows, but we're just grateful that she's here this evening tonight. Maureen, welcome to the program.
Thanks. Hey, Chris, quick correction.
Yes.
I didn't travel all over putting those cases together. When I went overseas, it was with the evidence response team to do, whatever we were doing. But my background is also heavily in the gangs and narcotics realm here in Los Angeles. That was pretty much what we would call my day job. And then the side gig or the side hustle or the extra work was the evidence response team, where we received just unparalleled training for 2 decades. I did that, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful series of experiences. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for the correction. And, I'm glad you were taking care of Main Street, Grape Hoover, and all those other fellows up there. So we're so excited to have you here in the game. Okay. So tonight, I just want to kind of give everybody a little rundown on where I think this conversation will be headed this evening. One of the things that has been going on here, we know that there's been no suspects identified in the Nancy Guthrie case. The most recent stuff, obviously, they're processing DNA. And, we'll dive into each of these kind of subcategories. There's a reward out there. I think we can take off the plate any of this cartel conversation unless somebody else has a different idea. I mean, Mexico right now is popping off, and I don't see Nancy Guthrie, involved in any way, shape, or form down there. Anybody disagree, or you have a different opinion? Okay, so we're all set with that one. It looks like the investigation status is moving forward. I personally believe behind the scenes, both the federal, the FBI, and the Pima County Sheriff's Department, the boots on the ground, those guys and gals are getting it done. And those who are running to the podium later on will get it done. But at this point, I think, some of the rumors and all this other stuff that is just noise in the background is detracting away from, maybe some intellectual conversation that we can have here to maybe bring some insight into Nancy and what's actually going on here. So that said, I want to just give all four of us just a brief victimology that I put together here. And Ann, I think this will really be in your lane as a whole. And as we talk about, why the targeting of the elderly, statistically, obviously, this is a situation that is so rare. I think all four of us are going, I've not seen this one yet. But at the same time, I know you and Gary and others are doing some research. And so I kind of want to tap into that and get your feeling on that. But so here's just a high level run on Nancy Guthrie. She was her birthday was January 27th. And I'm going to give a sequential timeline real fast. She hung out with her girlfriends, and she also cooked shrimp and grits that night. They made beignets, and her girlfriend name was Chris. On January 30th, just 2 days before she vanished, she played some, I don't even know how to pronounce this, M-A-H.
Mahjong.
Thank you. Mahjong. In her living room with some of her closest friends. Before they said goodbye that Friday afternoon, Nancy checked with one of the players and a longtime friend, making sure that they were still on to watch church at their friend Vicky's house on Sunday at 11 a.m. So she's communicating with her friends. She's playing games with her friends, and everybody is keeping an eye on one another. So we can see that, that friend group is extremely important. Sunday at 11 a.m., Nancy and her friends gather at one of their homes to watch a recording of what is called the Good Shepherd Church service in New York City. So she is 11 a.m. in Mountain Time to watch this video that is recorded in New York. It's close to you, Gary.
Yes, very close.
In the Manhattan area. That's the church that Savannah also attends. And so mom wanted to continue to watch those services, probably with the idea of seeing her daughter in the crowd. We never know, right? The women in Tucson even have wafers and grape juice on hand for communion. So they set up their own little communion as a friends group to watch this service. And when that part of the mass is going on, they actually pass around those items. February 1st, Sunday, Nancy was always punctual, quote unquote, from the girlfriends, always punctual, never missed. When she did not arrive by 11 a.m., her friends texted her and then called, and neither of those communication methods got any type of any response. They contacted Annie, her daughter, who went to Nancy's home, and that timeline, that number is kind of confusing. The sheriff has not pushed it out what the exact time frame was, other than to say that at 11:56 they went over to look for their mom. Annie went over to look for her mom, and she was not there. And then the 911 call comes in at 12:03.
Chris, are they saying Annie went over there alone and not with her husband?
Well, he's vague on that. That is a great way to kick this thing off. He's been very vague on this. Okay. And he's also vague on the other communication point that the drop off the night before, he said it was either the son-in-law, and then he's said it was both of them. So that's kind of a mystery as well.
And then a third time he said, "Are we just going with family?" And they nodded
in
yes.
The press conference. Great point. Great point. Yeah, I'm glad. Good. Everybody caught that. Okay, so here is Nancy in a nutshell. She loves to read, always had a stack of books on hand. Years earlier, Nancy taught Bible class study. When she was younger, she embraced the outdoors, playing tennis, hiking, and joining spin classes. As she got older, but as she aged, these things became much more difficult. Nancy had a pacemaker and relied on daily medications, and she began using a cane and powerful hearing aids. The girlfriends made that really important that we understood that. Powerful hearing aids. Without her hearing aids, her hearing was very diminished, according to her friends. In recent years, she often stayed home. She wrote in her journals and on her patio. She played Wordle and read books that when publishers sent the books to Savannah, Savannah would give them to her mother to read. So whenever Savannah got a lot of books, her mom basically would read them, and she was part of a book club with all her girlfriends. And my mother-in-law, who is 87, is also part of a book club, and they've been together for 50 years as all the gals. So she was still sharp as a tack, not only described that way by the sheriff, but by the girlfriends, and she rarely complained about back or medical conditions or other types of problems. She never missed a monthly book club meeting in many, many years. So that's a high-level run on the victimology. And now here we are. We're 21 or 22 days into this now. She's still missing. She's still out there. So I'll just kind of open it up for general impressions on Nancy. Thoughts, and I'll start with you, Dr. Burgess, and then we'll go ladies first, and then Maureen.
Okay. Well, one of the things that has impressed me is somebody had to get in that house, right, to take her out. And so what are the points of entry? One is the one that we've all seen, the where the camera is removed. But the one that I don't hear a lot about, and maybe somebody has more information, is the garage. And the garage is one that gets opened. Now, if we want to look at this as someone who is targeting her in a abduction approach, that is the easiest way to get in. Would be either to know that. I think that if she used that a lot, that would be another thing to try to find out her usual pattern. Did she always come, enter, and exit through the garage, or at least come back in that way? Didn't seem to, obviously that night, did not, as far as we know, come in the front door. So does the person come in there, get into the house, be there? I've had a number of cases where the guy gets in, he gets into the house, he gets familiar with the house, might even do that and not do anything, but then later does. So somebody that's familiar enough to know the habits, that's something that I wanted any kind of discussion on, because I think, Chris, you've given a good outline of her kind of her usual habits, type of personality, things like that. And that the hearing is a problem is important, because she would not necessarily hear somebody in the house or whatever, because the next timeline you get is into the early morning when the person is seen on the camera. Right. So something happens between that 9:45 that she gets home and the next timeline. Yeah, the garage door closes at 9:50. It also, I think the other thing that's important is how quickly the police are called. That when the family gets over there, at least Annie gets over there, something is so alarming to her that immediately call. That wouldn't necessarily have to be. I mean, people might take a little bit more time, call around and so forth. But look at how fast. It's only like 7 minutes and they call the police.
Okay, so I'm going to throw a curveball at everybody tonight, which I think is the first time anybody has talked about this. And that's why I think you guys are going to be perfect for just what you said, Ann, right? Going into the garage, okay? But when the friend said she likes to sit on the porch and write in her journal, nobody has spotted these two other doors.
Aha.
And nobody's talking about these other two doors. So I want your guys' opinion, because we see this guy, right? And let me pull this up a little bit bigger. Okay. This is where she sits in her habits to write in her journal outside. And there are two other points of entry into this house. Now that, when I first saw this picture, as I zoomed into it, I assumed that could have been water or something like that. It's not. It's a tree. It's a big tree that hangs out into the courtyard. So it's kind of deceiving that it's not some type of pattern or anything like that would cause us alarm, right? Just for the record, so that guys and gals in the chat, that is not any kind of suspicious activity. But so with your point, Ann, about the garage, so now we have the front door, we have the garage. There are two doors, two blue doors in the back of the residence. And now we have these two doors. And then, of course, all the windows. The sheriff has been very vague to tell the public what the point of entry is. And to me, I don't understand why. So what say you guys about this potential in relationship to, do you think this is in play in any way, shape, or form? Maureen?
Well, we would have to consider that it's in play, but from all the initial reporting, and if you hadn't seen it, every news agency and their brother had drones up that were circling the residence. There didn't appear in any of that footage to show any broken windows, anything along those lines. The only thing we heard in a presser was that the back door was open. And we don't know if it was completely ajar or whatever. But I do know that the front door is one of those ornate wrought iron gate doors, or like a screen door that's really, really difficult for those of us in law enforcement, really difficult to breach. It can be done. Obviously, we oftentimes would use a winch or some breaching tools, but it makes a lot of noise. And then behind that is a very thick, like hickory or oak Spanish style door. So that front door, the assailant walked up and took down the camera. And so I believe it was part of the plan, no matter what happened after that, because that's where the video ends. I don't know what happened after that, but I do know that was the planned egress route. That's what I believe.
Okay.
Was someone else in the back? I don't know. But if I were going to try to break in, I would test these doors. I mean, I think we can all agree that people leave their sliders unlocked. I think older women that live alone tend not to, but I could be wrong. And you've got all those windows along there. But it looks like there's a pretty good size, or 4.5 foot, 5 foot pony wall around there, doesn't it, Chris?
Yeah. There is a brick pony wall jump around there, and you can see that.
Yeah.
See the red bush in this particular photograph here. Gary, weigh in here. What are you thinking?
Well, I want to comment quickly about a couple of things because we're moving very quickly through a lot of different subtopics. So first of all, that victimology that you presented is conspicuous to me because what's missing is any information whatsoever about the dynamics between her and family members, and anything at all that might have gone on in terms of her finances, her will, who was the executor, what was going on with power of attorney, if anybody, etc. And this is very problematic because we can't get a clear picture of if anybody, not even necessarily family, just people who were around her, anybody from the pool guy to the mailman to the whatever, might have had some personal reason to have any hand in this. And I do believe, I've been convinced from day one, that there is probably some nexus between some amateur hour kind of goon or goons that were involved and somebody who knew this woman. And in some way, ancillary way or in a close way. So I think the absence of that information, and I'm sure, Ann, you would echo this from our victimology work,
Sure.
is very conspicuously missing. The second thing is I was thrilled to hear that she kept a journal, because there may be clues in said journal about some heating up problem between somebody approaching her for money and her saying, pound dirt, pound sand, I'm not giving you a penny, somebody who threatened her, etc. So that's very helpful. The other thing I think we have to say when you're talking about the victimology is extremely important is that one of the things I heard buzzing around for a while when this first happened was the question, and I see it in the chat too, the question of whether she could have been targeted for sexual purposes. And a lot of people immediately said, well, that's improbable. She's 84 years old. Now, I can tell you, and we'll have a lot to say about this too. We've done research on the topic. The truth of the matter is that if you look at the literature, the little literature that exists, there actually is a little spike in the octogenarian years of being targeted sexually. but it is generally by people who know you very well, and it is generally extremely violent. So that what you tend to see is, like, you know, a family member turns on you, assaults you, and we see heavy beating and other kinds of awful things that will happen. It doesn't tend to be like a Richard Ramirez situation where you break into a house and assault a stranger, right? Where he did attack some victims that were that age, but it was very unusual. So, but I think I have not heard anything at all that suggested to me that that was the motive, that there was a sexual motive. I wondered it, as did you, I know, Chris, when they were looking at fluids, and it was unclear what that might include. I did wonder about that. And I wondered what you think about, just to sort of give your professional opinion on it, what do you think about people in the public who insist that she was targeted by somebody who would probably be serial in nature, by the way? You don't, if you're paraphilically attracted to an elderly woman, unless she's totally random.
Yeah, well, that is very interesting. The cases, and it's really Mark Safrick who has done the research on elderly murdered women, and he's got a database of about 120. And what seems to be is they are murdered sexually. You know, these are all sexual cases, but they're left at this residence. They're not abducted, so that they can be targeted and they can go in and commit the acts, but we'd have to ask him. I never remember him saying that any were abducted. So that part that's the curious part. I think the other important thing I wanted to say is the people you also want to look at is who does the cleaning in the house and who does the yard work, because as we just saw, there's a lot of brush, easy places to hide in that. What Chris put up initially. And we certainly have had cases where it's never the person that does the work, but it's that they tell another person how to get in, you know, about the person, etc. And that can be a possible enterprise type of crime when we're just looking in general for motive. I think that speaks to motive. So that's what I'd have to say on that.
But Anne, do you agree that the probability is that at least someone involved in this story had previously encountered this victim? Or do you think it's possible, in the way that some people are speculating, that somebody just targets her for a robbery or for sexual reasons and breaks into the house and abducts her? Because, I mean, Chris and I have talked about this at great length, but we're pretty comfortable saying that somebody has crossed paths with her before. In the story, but I wonder what you think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's someone local that knows the area. I think that's been said. But I think that the person doesn't know her personally, certainly knows of her, watches her. It's an easy targeted area to keep under surveillance. And I feel that would be one of the things that whomever, and I do think it's more than one, have to be more than one to get her out of the house. Has knowledge of her and has watched her, knows her habits, probably certainly knows about going to church on Sunday, and evidently maybe Saturday nights were pretty typical too, where she'd go out for dinner and then come back in and use the garage and come in.
Right.
So I agree with you all that, yes.
But just to kind of cross our T's and dot our I's, because I think a lot of people are really, I know a lot of people are very eager to hear what we have to say about the sexual possibility. I just want to be clear that in our work that we've done on elder crimes and so forth, it is extremely unusual. Let's say you were dealing with a serial offender who was very organized and would abduct people repetitively and take them someplace to do things. It's virtually unprecedented to do that with an elderly victim. I'm not aware of any case. I looked in my own data. I can't find any case where an offender removed an elderly victim from the home and took them someplace for sexual purposes. Not one. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I agree. I don't know of that. If they're going to do anything sexual, it's going to be in the residence.
Exactly. So that would be totally unprecedented. Now, her doing that to somebody and then passing away during it, or killing them to eliminate a witness or so forth, that I have heard of, but even that is extremely rare. You could count on maybe 5 or 6 hands, the number of cases that I have on record. And most of them involved people that were very random in their victims. They were just attacking anyone who happened to be female, child, adult, so forth. Many of them were drug addicts or people using alcohol or who were very ill, as opposed to somebody with a very clear paraphilic purpose. Like I can think of a couple of cases where people only exclusively targeted elderly people, but it's profoundly rare.
Oh, yeah, that certainly is not unusual that would be the paraphilic aspect to their behavior. Sure.
So, Chris, I just wanted to sort of put that out there because people have been very curious if we think that could be going on, and I just sort of want to get it off the table. I don't think so.
Yeah, no,
very interesting.
Go ahead, Maureen. I'm sorry.
I just said very interesting. Yeah, I was very happy to hear that. I mean, I'm very interested in everything you have to say. I should rephrase that.
We're interested in what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, the victimology here, right, is pretty clear with the victim risk continuum. Everything is down the lower left-hand corner, very low risk. Right? She's a very low risk victim, right?
Risk below only while she's in the house.
Yeah.
When she goes out, that risk level goes up, and certainly is going to go up as in our discussion,
right?
Especially if some of those sliding doors are not locked. You know, if she know if how that garage door, do you have to have a mechanism to get it in or get it lift it? So I think all of those things become. But look at the shrubbery that's there. I know it's got a fence, but that's for someone that's athletic. That's not going to deter anybody. I think that's very interesting. That I've never seen that, and I think that is, and that she sits out there and does her journal. So anybody watching can see that. You'd almost want to see what is her nearest neighbor from that direction, or house or whatever. Kind of do a wider perimeter.
Yeah. So
somebody has to get in the house. Somebody had to get in the house to do this.
Yeah. And to answer your question about the garage. People are saying that, you know, you can use either an app. I honestly don't know anyone that uses an app for their garage. I know everyone that has the button on their rear view mirror that you can program a number of doors for wherever that you're going. Also, the really small clickers that are only about this big. That's the kind I like to have because it fits in my purse. And but I spoke with my tech guy in my company, and he is a world-class expert in everything that deals with anything electronic. And he said that he doesn't know the make and model of this garage door opener. However, garage door openers, as a general rule, can be programmed to work with an app and also without an app. So you can have a push button, you know, have your pass-through door or walk into your garage and press that button. And depending on how it's configured, that may or may not cause a log. If you have it configured to log every time that door opens, it'll tell you. And in that instance, your phone will only register, will have a log of openings and closings, but they'll only be able to identify you as a person if you're using the app. So the other ones could be not anonymous, but you may not be able to tell who went in. And that goes for keypads also.
Sure.
So
yeah.
Could you be someplace else and just hit that app and then the garage door would open up too, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, the fact that we have two data points here to Maureen's, conversation. The first one is 9:48 p.m. And this has been kind of a curveball, for me for the last, 10 days or whatever it's been, 22 days. And allegedly the garage door shows activation, and then the statement connected to that activation from the sheriff is kind of, a mixed bag of nuts. Either she was dropped off by the brother-in-law, right?
Right.
Or excuse me, her son-in-law, or by her son-in-law and her daughter. And then he kind of pulled that back and he said, well, no, it was the son-in-law. And then as Maureen pointed out in a press conference, when the FBI agent looked over at him, he goes, you could tell there was this hesitation. Where are we going to go with this? And the sheriff says, well, let's just go, let's say it was, go with the family, basically. And it's like, well, that was weird.
It
So,
was very weird.
yeah, I mean, it just, right? DLR doesn't look right, right? Okay, so then the next data point that we have is 9:50. So it's a 2-minute garage doors open, garage doors close. And that caused all kinds of, conversations with everybody. Well, did he go in? Did he stay out? And then the very first press conference he gave out on the curb in the evening, he was asked specifically by a journalist, did the family go inside? And he kind of, got caught broadside for a moment, and he goes, yes. Okay.
Is that the one where he said they went in to make sure she was settled and then left? And I started banging on that right then, saying that's not possible. An 84-year-old woman in a walker getting through the garage, up those 2 stairs or whatever, and into her residence, just doing that and getting out to your car is impossible. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, what if they went in through the garage, closed the door when they got her up and in there, and then left through the front door or the back door and forgot to lock it?
Great point.
Yeah.
Great point. Anything on just to in our conversation to that point, because I think the elephant in the living room is coming up here, right? The elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Okay. So at 1:47, we're all aware that the Nest doorbell camera disconnects. We have the video of the guy, Leaf Man or whoever he thinks he is up there. And then at 2:12, this is kind of just a random concept that was presented out there by the sheriff. Another data point, 2:12 a.m., a person is seen on a camera. But he doesn't tell us any more than that. He just kind of floats it out there. And then he says they couldn't get that data because it was in a server and that it didn't go up to the cloud. So that's kind of a confusion. And then, right, and jump in at any time, you guys. Don't worry about stepping over me if you have a thought. At 2:28, Nancy's pacemaker disconnects from her watch, from her Apple Watch. So from 2:12 to 2:28, we have that, whatever it is, 16 minutes approximately. And then 11 a.m., she doesn't show up for church. So he jumps right to 11 a.m. Then 11:56, it jumps to the family goes to check on Nancy. Okay.
The family, yes.
Right? The family goes to check on Nancy. But we don't have a data point if they utilize the garage. Did they go through the front door? Did they go around the back? Did they go through the sliders now that, did somebody jump over that pony wall to check on mom through the slider? We don't know. We don't know. We definitely know there is no, as Maureen pointed out, there is no signs of forced entry that has, one, been made public, and two, that you can see based on the drone footage and what the news and all these other, news outlets are putting out there. So that's kind of a, it's kind of a mystery, but I would have expected if it's her habit pattern, and you guys tell me what you're thinking, if she's the passenger the night before, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, does the son-in-law have a clicker in his car? That would make sense. That could be a possibility. Does he have the app? That could be a possibility as well. But does mom have the app as well? I don't know. Or does she have a clicker that she carries with her because she took
I'm going clicker, Chris. I'm going clicker all the way.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So if mom's got the clicker in her purse, it makes sense. They're pulling up to the house, click, the garage door goes up. Okay. And now 2 minutes, I'm with you. I'm having a hard time saying, okay, get out, get your cane, walk yourself into the house, make sure, you'll see you at church tomorrow. But go ahead, Gary, jump in.
Well, two things. One is, and I know it sounds far-fetched, but from the angle of logic, we have no choice but to put it on the table, is that technically speaking, just because somebody's blood and some foreign DNA are at this house does not mean that whatever fate befell her happened at that house. I am aware of many, many cases involving sophisticated staging where something happens to somebody in one location and then you go and put some blood and enter the home and leave your DNA that way elsewhere. I think it's improbable, but it is possible technically, which is interesting to think about. The other thing is there's something confusing about the mismatch of different psychologies that seem to be going on here, because whoever did this did something that seemed to involve some inner knowledge, was very comfortable there for a period of time, right? Didn't seem, particularly worried about capture or anything like that.
42 minutes.
Yeah, that's very, very cozy, right? And has gotten away with this, right? Left very little, material. But then at the same time, the person that we see on the video is like amateur hour, dressed in a ridiculous outfit that looks like a concoction thrown together with things from around the house and Walmart, whatever. The holster that doesn't match the gun, worn incorrectly, dangling.
Like a costume, right, Gary?
It's like a costume. It looks like a person. I said that it looked like Ralph Cramden dressed up as the man from space, the Honeymooners, where you throw together whatever you find in the house to improvise. It's silly. So there's something about that doesn't match the kind of sophistication that seems to be present in somebody getting away with this and leaving very little. So that's why it really feels like, and I made this analogy on Court TV a couple of days ago, is it feels kind of like we're seeing the waiter serving the food, but not the cook. What we're looking at here, this is the person who is the person who's been recruited, financially paid, is told you're going to get a share of this, whatever, who goes in, and behind him somewhere is some more intelligent person who has said, I'm not even stepping foot into Dodge. I'm not going to get, so you'll do that. And what I think is there's a concentration on this person as if this person is the brains of the operation, but it doesn't psychologically make sense. And so that is why I postulated, I think a few of us agree, that there is some kind of group enterprise thing going on. Now, it's fun to be able to say that that's Anne's term, right? We all use that term, group enterprise versus personal cause, but that comes from Anne's crime classification manual that you did with Douglas and Alan Burgess and Ressler, right?
Right.
So, Chris, would it be helpful? That's right. Would it be helpful if Anne explained for the audience the difference between personal cause and group enterprise? Because what I think is going on here is somebody with a personal motive who's gotten involved with in a financial kind of thing, so that it's confusing everybody. But somewhere in this story is somebody with more personal motive. So, and maybe, what do you think, Chris?
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with that. Well, to try to get some handle on how to talk about cases in general, murder cases in general, the agents came up with the 4 categories, and they're very useful. We use it all the time. But criminal enterprise is the first, and that's the first because that's what they were working at that particular time. They did bank robberies, they did kidnappings. Those were the cases that they felt most comfortable with, where there was ransom or contract out to kill someone or whatever.
Or gang activity, right?
Yeah. And absolutely. Then the second category is personal cause. And that was one where it ended up with 12 or 14 different individual reasons for motive for why. And that could have been revenge. That could have been retaliation, your road rage, anything in which it was personal to the particular primary person fell into that category. And then the third was sexual. That happened to be what we were working on at the time, the sexual homicide, because nobody could come up, the agents were having trouble with motive on these sexual crimes. And then the last is group cause. And that was where there were multiple people. That really never got a lot of attention because the other 3 categories were really so important. But that's where the criminal enterprise came up. And I know initially when I heard about the case, that's where I said, I bet it's in that category. I don't know whether it's developed anymore, but I do think that the primary person would have a personal cause reason. And I wanted to expand a tiny bit on Chris's initial victimology here, because it doesn't have to be the person, her himself. It can be the group, it could be the family, it could be a wider cut, if you will, of a target. And I think the other thing that keeps coming up is so much of the time Savannah's name comes up, and whether there was anybody that had any personal reaction there. That has to be looked at. I think that should be on the table for motive, not just the mom, the 84-year-old mother.
Right.
The reason I love this discussion, Gary, and Ann, is because, and I'm sure Chris feels the same way, but Chris and Gary, you both talked about how so much of this just doesn't fit together. It's almost like square pegs being crammed into round holes, and then everyone just is left scratching their head or waking up like, WTF just happened, you know?
Right.
So I think breaking it down this way is extremely helpful. And because I looked at this guy too, and it was very, first of all, I thought he was high from the very beginning. I thought he was smoking weed or something, because sometimes these offenders, when they're getting paid to do something, it falls into just what you guys are saying. If they're really poor and they're getting paid to do something they're very uncomfortable with, they'll either drink or smoke weed or do something to sort of numb themselves before they go in and do it. So that sort of allows some of these things to fall into place, because we're all logic-driven thinkers, and this is an illogical situation that we've never seen before. So it makes it very challenging and frustrating.
Right. And,
Yeah,
Chris, you and I have talked about this on prior episodes, and stop me if I'm taking us too far afield of where you want to go.
I think the audience as well as myself. I mean, I'm
Well, you
so
can't
fired
get
up.
the four
Keep
of us
going.
together and not have a chat like that. We can't help ourselves. But so Ann knows, and the audience may know, and I'll mention it, Maureen, because it's really an in the weeds kind of thing. Is that one of the things I contributed to the literature was this term elimination murder, right? That's a term I've coined. And I use that, and I don't want to necessarily put murder on the table here, because I want to maintain hope that we don't really know how this is going to turn out, but
We
I
all
think
do.
hope is important for the family, as improbable as it seems, right? That an 84-year-old woman without medication, who's ambulating with difficulty and has been missing this long, is okay. I would like to maintain hope now. So what I meant by that term was that sometimes a person, you don't necessarily have ill will toward them, but they're simply an impediment to something. Like when Susan Smith had to eliminate her children because it was preventing a romance. So she pretended that they were abducted and they were actually drowned in a lake. Or the person who eliminates a witness to have their freedom, or eliminates someone that they think is a burden because they don't want to take care of them, or they eliminate them because of a will or something. You see some of this, I think, in the Murdoch case.
Right. Or like the man that murdered his wife Shanann and their two little girls because he wanted to have his girlfriend and his life, a new life with his girlfriend.
Exactly. Well, in my
True.
research on that phenomenon, what I found was that almost invariably, to the point that I have made it in my I just wrote about it for a textbook, and did a chapter on the latest edition of the rape book that you did, Ann. What I proposed was that it is actually one of the characteristics that the people who commit those, who tend to know you, almost invariably make a story up that a stranger, an abductor, or a stranger from the outside came into the situation and for no clear reason whatsoever took or eliminated the person, right? So, for example, in the Lizzie Borden case, which Ann and I are writing about as we speak, literally as we speak, which I'm convinced she did it, spoiler alert, there was this ridiculous story that somebody just randomly came in and killed the father and killed the stepmother and didn't take anything. He had money in his pocket, jewelry on his fingers, took nothing, and there was no sexual assault of the mother-in-law, right, or of Lizzie, right? I mean, of the second wife, or Lizzie, or even Bridget outside, right? So 3 females, nobody is assaulted by this guy. Totally ridiculous, because it was staged to look like I'm convinced, staged to look like an outsider came in. And so one of the things I've been thinking about is somebody who knows her, and let me be clear, because I don't want to cast any aspersions. It doesn't have to be somebody like a family member, right? Because we have the sheriff coming out and saying that he has cleared members of the family and their spouses. So what I'm saying is it could be somebody who knows you in some way. Let's put it like that. And such an individual, if eliminating you for money or something else, will try to make it look like a stranger did it. And what we'll be missing is signs of robbery and signs of sexual assault, so that there's no other explanation of why the person would do this.
Right.
And I just want to put that out there, that's very interesting to me, that we see no signs of robbery. I mean, if people went in there in a random robbery, why not take things?
Right.
That doesn't make sense. And we see no sign that she was assaulted. In fact, they thought it was a simple missing person situation, because that house was not even in major disarray. So that's very, very
We
interesting.
don't know that yet, right? Though, I mean, because
Yeah.
Why?
That's
They're-
what they intimated.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so that's very interesting. And so I just want to put out that I have been suspicious that this was a person who had some knowledge of her that is giving the impression that an outside person, and what better way to do that than to use a hired person or some goon or somebody to do this. And that's the person who becomes the fall person for the situation.
Yeah.
But then you've got to get to the real reason of why, and we don't know any dynamics to help
Gary,
us.
not to say,
Confused.
just to follow on to your point about this elimination theory,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
not potentially having anything to do with what we're talking about right now.
Right.
In my couple years, I've had a number of cases where adult children, and I'm not talking about Savannah or her siblings. I'm just saying along the line of what you were just saying. I've had a number of adult children who wanted their inheritance now, were really upset that their parents wouldn't give it to them. And that's something that we all would find so shocking for so many reasons. But they're demanding it, essentially. And so it's crazy that elimination theory could fall under so many different umbrellas. And
That's
it
right.
seems like and it seems that this spike I'm seeing in this type of behavior, or this type of thinking, where it's like, hey, mom and dad, why don't you just take a second out on your house and give me all the money that I would get when you died, because we could do a lot more with it now than we could, and we just don't want to sit around and wait for you to die. Literally, that's what people are saying to their parents.
That's a smart thing you're saying, because the whole point of the whole book I did with Michael Stone is this whole idea that there's something changing in the culture that is increasing.
Exactly my point.
Yeah.
And what you're touching on is that the entitlement of the average person is sort of increasing. And I think you're hitting the nail right on the head. What I smell in this story is that there's somebody who wanted something from this woman, felt entitled to it, and wasn't getting it. And so we have to find out who benefits. Who's getting something?
Sure.
Who wanted something from her? Now, the other thing that I think psychologically is very interesting about this case is and you alluded to it, is that it is extremely conspicuous in the victimology that she is the mother who has been featured on TV of a prominent individual. Now, there is a type of person who stalks a person and becomes fixated on a person because, and this is an idea Chris has heard me talk about on this program before and elsewhere before, is that sometimes, think, for example, of Mark David Chapman, who targeted John Lennon. The idea is you go after a person because you want in history to be attached to them. You parasitically attach yourself to them. So, now I can't look up, Abraham Lincoln without seeing John Wilkes Booth's name, right? Like they're tied together forever. That's possible. However, having studied such people, the tendency is for them to be, in the profile, is they tend to be a little psychotic and depressed with narcissistic personality structures. So what we tend to see is the type of person who is very down and thinks, if I only had this special connection,
If
with Joe,
only, yeah.
if Jodie Foster knows I love her, right? Like we saw, I go after Hinckley and I'll impress her, right? So you see these kind of people who are more unwell emotionally. And we don't really see any clear indication of that in this story, because the thing is, when that's the motive, the person comes forward right away, just like in a ransom. In a ransom, we tend to see a note or a contact 24 to 48 hours after the abduction. There's proof of life. You get the money, and it's over in a week on average.
It's very transactional for a reason.
Yeah,
there's nothing
it's a business
extra and
transaction.
nothing personal. Exactly. In this story, there were things that were not necessary. There were risks taken that were not necessary for perpetrating the crime and getting money. And so it looks kind of like someone has an emotional thing mixed in there that we're unaware of, or nothing went to plan. Like, we're going to take her, we're going to make it look like somebody abducted her, and we'll get the money, but then she passes away. So now we try to get the money anyway, right? Something like that. But I wanted to put it out there that it doesn't match the profile we would see in somebody who was like psychotically fixated on a person or wants attention or something like that, because we'd hear from them.
Right.
They'd be out there right now saying, so that doesn't make sense. The ransom thing doesn't make sense. There's no proof of life at all, and it's taking too long. There's no sexual motivation that seems to be clear. There was no robbery. So what's left?
Right.
That's where we wind up with this personal question, but who? So who benefits? And there's this kind of black box surrounding it. And what's been frustrating to me is that the picture we have of the victim makes her sound like a caricature. She's a nice 84-year-old woman who was going to church, and everyone loved her, and she played mahjong, and her habits, she was never late for anything, and that's it. There's no meat in there that makes her human. Now, Chris, you're always very fond of quoting, I think it's Greg who says it, that people have a public life, a private life, and a secret life, right? Where did he get that from?
The behavior analysis.
Okay. Well, we don't know anything.
I believe that Nancy is exactly who they say she was, though.
But we don't know anything. I'm talking about the people around her, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We don't have any information about her dynamics with anyone else who might be angry at her or might have demanded something of her.
But it still doesn't make sense, Gary.
It makes no sense.
It makes no sense because it was not a fruitful endeavor. Whatever their goal was, I mean, other than to remove her from the location, what else has transpired that could be meaningful to someone? And if it is meaningful, to whom is it meaningful?
Exactly. Well, that's why I'm
Dr. Ann, what do you think
about this? And what do you think about this?
Well, there's one thing that has changed, and that's been Savannah's job. I think that's the only thing I could come up with is there has been some writings about what happens next to and she was the star of Today, or one of them.
Oh, you mean that she may leave the position?
What happens? Yeah. And had there been any kind of rumblings? There was even one thought that maybe she was thinking of leaving because she had just done some podcast or something. But that's a great question that you say, is what has been affected?
Exactly.
Now, it's interesting that you say that, because I just happened to, while I was cooking last night, listen to, I don't even know what was on, but it was someone talking about her job and how it's up on the chopping block now because she can't go back to work. And I remember thinking as I was cooking, well, I mean, who would know that if anything happened to her mom, she couldn't go back to work? But then I looked at how much she loved her mother. Yeah. And it was so obvious. It was the way I loved my mother. Yeah. And as big and tough as I am, and I have a whole family of first responders, and we're all, rough, tumble, salty, the whole 9 yards. All 6 of us kids were legless for about 3 years because our mom too died our father died when I was 16, just like Savannah. And so what happens then? Your mother becomes your mother and your father, essentially. They're trying to do both jobs. And so your love for them I want to say grows exponentially, and it becomes apparent to those around you. So just when you said that, Anne, that sort of shifted that into a lock position for me. So that is interesting. Gary, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's one of several possible personal motives that have to be considered, because it's the absence of the consideration of personal motives that leaves us with these increasingly goofy alternative ideas that are sending us out into the world, imagining, things and leads that are going down rabbit holes.
Right.
And it seems simpler. I mean, technically speaking, as Chris is fond of saying, you don't even have to leave the house yet, in terms of,
Right.
in an Occam's razor kind of way. Now, there's been this clearance of the immediate people around it, but that doesn't rule out all kinds of people that might have known her in ancillary ways. And so I'm very, very interested. But Anne, that's such a fascinating idea. So you're putting out there that it's possible that somebody was sort of targeting Savannah through the mind. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, jealousy. There could
And that
be.
Which opens up Pandora's box, Anne, right? For the guy in LA.
Oh, golly, yeah.
The fruitcake that they, the feds took off pretty quickly. And Gary and I and many others have had this thought now. When you read the affidavit, anybody that's ever written these things knows that, it's very well wordsmithed, right? At the very end, they talk about, let me read this, because this has been a thorn that's been sitting in my saddle, for a couple of weeks. And I think the verbiage in of itself is what really gets me. So here's a guy, I'm not even going to name him. He's under indictment. He's in Tucson. He's already appeared a couple of times. However, this guy tries to interject. This guy decides, you know what? I think I'll just interject myself into the most high-profile kidnapping probably since the Lindbergh baby. Okay?
A lot of comparisons with that case. Actually.
Right. And he sends 2 text messages, one to Annie, the daughter of Nancy, and the second to the son-in-law. Okay? The explanation is, well, I just did an open source intel search. I pulled off these phone numbers, and I decided to text them. Okay, fine. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I also haven't fallen off a turnip truck. Okay. And, we've all heard it before. Okay.
I love the mixed metaphor of it.
Well, Mari knows, and all of us know, you've been in that interview where you just look at the guy and say, do you see stupid flashing on my forehead anywhere in neon lights?
Yeah. When they say yes, it's really embarrassing, right, Chris?
It's right. That's when you go and say, I'm going to get you a bottle of water. I'll be right back. Okay, so here's the text message that this guy sends to the brother-in-law when Savannah is on the news as the spokesperson for the family with her sister and her brother, who I can take Savannah and her brother off the table personally.
Me too.
We know that's not a problem. But here's the text. It's a question. It's not a text message. It's a question. Here it is. Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction. That is a question. Okay. And now I guess we can tie it into, the letter, the ransoms and all this other stuff. Okay. And we can say, hey, the guy, this guy's a genius because he's going to try to get the money before the other guy who wrote the letter. Okay. But then we have a problem. And that problem is there's a 9-second phone call into a family member. In that affidavit, they have not identified who that family member was, but they identified the daughter and the son-in-law. And then underneath that, okay, they say the 2 text messages have not been linked to the ransom demand. Okay, fine. But why do we have creative writing 101 where they say he called a family member for 9 seconds? Well, who? Who did he call? Did he call just Tommaso? Did he call anybody, any other family member? And then you ask yourself, at least I was asking myself, going, well, wait a minute. You know, the last person to see her alive was the brother-in-law and or the daughter. The first people to see her alive when she left the house were the brother-in-law and the daughter through the Uber when she got dropped off by the Uber. And so you have to think and say, okay, well, they were the last two people to see proof of life. They were the last two. And now you get this guy completely out of LA area who says, you know what, I think I'll just interject myself into this one and ask them if they've got the money yet. So on one side, you've got a ransom demand saying, give us money. So that's a demand, give us. And over here, you've got this one saying, have you gotten it yet? Give me. So you got give us and give me. Okay. I don't know about you, but I've always felt that just didn't fit, but
It does
I'm
not
probably
fit.
wrong.
Nope, you're not wrong. It does not fit. It's just one more example of the absence of all that's normal
Yeah.
in any of these. I mean, this is almost like working 5 cases at once and trying to make them all get along with each other. It's just, nuts.
Yeah. And then we get to the two simple data points or the access points. How did they get into the house? How did the family get into the house? And why is the sheriff not just coming out to the public and saying, look, here's what happened that morning when they went to find their mother. End of story, move on, nothing to see here, yada, yada. Okay. Yeah. But instead he comes out with this other statement of everybody's off the table. No, thank you. Keep moving. Okay.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. But now you have a lane of communication taking place with one particular news network, NBC, because Brian Enton just reported today that he's frustrated that he's not getting the sit downs like NBC is. Well, who's driving that conversation? I'd like to know, right? I mean, behind the scenes, is that going to be a crafted narrative, ultimately? And is the sheriff under a lot of pressure behind the scenes, to say whatever he wants to say? Ann, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I agree. I think there's, you get into the other very odd thing here is there's no information that anybody can, like a group of us can look at. They won't put anything in about the crime scene, even the entry into the house. What is helpful is this timeline you put out, and there are big gaps. Right. And to try to figure that, they seem very reluctant to do any kind of interpersonal kinds of work. They're so kind of avoidant of it. I wonder, why haven't they? I know that there are some really good platforms out there that just take data, lots of data, and enter it in, and it can give you some, some machine learning. Why don't they do that?
Yeah, and Maureen's the expert in this. I mean,
absolutely.
This is your run here. I mean, you've done this 1,000 times with
couldn't you do that?
Connecting the dots, huh?
Or even take the tips that are coming in. Would that give you anything? I don't know.
Oh yeah, the tips. There's a lot of tips coming in, and as soon as you double the ransom or the reward, the tips doubled. So they're looking at all the tips very closely, and as you all probably well know, if you have one tip that says, I think I saw someone walking down the street with a hoodie, but then you have another one saying at that same location saying they saw a tag to a vehicle, then you have another one, then as they collate, they get pushed up to the top. I know they're very busy. I know they're working very hard. And I know, the Bureau isn't saying anything because we normally don't say anything. We're very disciplined in that regard. I think one of the big issues here is that not only is the sheriff talking, he's talking out of the left side, the right side. I mean, and it's just confusing. But to get back to everyone's point about how they got in, I think we can look at a couple of things and say and agree generally that they did not go in through the garage door when they got there. They probably didn't go in through the front door. They would have seen the blood right away.
Yep.
They probably went around to the back to get into that back door because they noticed it was ajar or open to some extent. And I'm relatively certain they didn't go in through a window. Now, they may have gone in through a slider. So we're down to the back door, that blue door with the 9 panes of glass in there, and or one of the sliders. But when you looked at all the images of that back door, it did not appear to be forced entry. Normally, you'll see splintering and things along those lines. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
It looks fine. And, you know, and I mean, if you kick a door hard enough, I'm doing this to look. Yeah, if you kick a door hard enough, you're going to have an imprint on that door, which is what the evidence team would be measuring very carefully, photographing, and lifting also. So you don't see any of that right there, and all the panes are all intact, appear to be intact.
And it's the same on the other one too, Maureen.
Correct.
On the garage side.
So we're looking at the garage door being opened with either the keypad where it didn't log on the app that someone must have had for them to have that data point, because every data point on that timeline, I always throw things on a timeline. I find them to be just so filled with information. And the door, the doorway or the garage door opening and closing, etc. The fact that they didn't mention it tells me it was opened in a different way because they can't verify that data point. But it also goes back to what you were saying before, Chris, about what was it with the timeline? Oh, with Savannah's mom going on that show. That was, you know, just a few months before. That's a point I would have on that timeline for sure, because I would be looking for things to be happening along those lines. Like, for example, when you consider that shooter in Vegas where he shot all those people at that country western concert, but no one could ever come up with any type of motive whatsoever. The only thing I thought of was I went back and looked at when did he had one pistol his whole life. And then all of a sudden, he starts buying fancy long guns. I mean, really expensive weaponry and lots of ammo. So I looked at that date, and then I looked sociologically, what's going on around that date. And the only thing I could really find was a week before he started acquiring big numbers of weapons. It was that movie called The Accountant, where it was like him, a simple, boring accountant who actually was a world-class badass. And I thought, geez, could it be as simple as that? I mean, would that make any sense at all, Ann or Gary?
Well, he's in my database with Rocky Burgess at the at Columbia Medical Center, and we also struggled with a motive for Stephen Paddock. That's who you mean, right, Paddock?
Yep. Yeah. That's the only thing I ever.
It's an interesting idea, but I think more.
What number is he, Gary? Where's he fit?
Oh, well, we would go very far afield if I answered that question. So I'm gonna resist answering.
Where do we get him, man?
Right, but I can answer books. A separate show.
You have a book, Maureen?
What happened?
Not yet.
I should. If I do have a book, I'm going to name it "My Life as an FBI Agent and Other Disasters."
Oh, that's a good one. But
finish your thought, Gary. I'm sorry.
No, but with Paddock, I think we saw some emotional health issues, you know, gambling debt, descent into depression, things like that. But the point I had wanted to make that I think is, you know, I always like to think about historical cases for precedent wherever they exist, and I'm not making a comparison really between these cases. Just a point, right. A little detail is, think of the 1969 Tate and LaBianca murders in California involving the Manson family. When that first happened, people's theories about it were things like it was a drug deals gone haywire. it was copycat killings. Maybe it was some Satanist, kind of thing, which was a very hot idea at the time, etc.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, after this, Susan Atkins claimed she did it alone originally out of devotion. Once they find out what's really going on, Bugliosi, remember Vincent Bugliosi, comes out and says, actually, behind the curtains, there was a cult leader who convinced this group of people that they were going to start a race war, a helter-skelter race war, and that was the true motive for this. And then out of nowhere, you went from a home invasion with a slaughter, right, like that, to this absolutely, bizarre kind of alternative thing. Well, the valuable lesson in that is to not forget the idea that there could be a cook behind, back in the kitchen, right? And what I think is that in this particular case, the sheriff seems to be talking about who could be responsible based on who actually seems to have made contact with the victim and done whatever happened to her. But there doesn't seem to be consideration of the larger nexus that could be involved, right? So the idea is, I don't think that any person in the immediate circle or anybody who sort of knew her in some ancillary way seems to have gone in and taken her life. So the focus seems to be on there, but I suspect that there's more to the story. This is like before they figured out there was a Manson, right?
Right.
So who is this behind the scenes that is involved? Because that man that is in that video did not perpetrate this alone.
No.
That guy looks like he couldn't, remove a sandwich from a paper bag without difficulty. So, I mean, you're talking about somebody who put plants in front of a camera.
Yeah, but this guy has shaped how the investigation's
That's the idea.
heading right now, and that's problematic. I mean, anybody that anybody knows that once you start going down that tunnel, if you're not, keeping an open mind and allowing other people to have, better ideas sometimes, and a lot of times, then, that becomes very dangerous, because what we have right now is we have a totality of conversation around, this is a total abduction. It was a burglary gone crazy. I've never ever worked a caper where a burglar decided to take an 84-year-old woman out of the building.
Yeah, it's almost trying to imagine bad guys say, "Hey, I've got a great idea. Why don't we wrap her in a tarp and try to carry her around? And let's even cross the border where there's all those cameras and everything.
Exactly.
Great idea. Let's go."
Yeah.
Right.
And
well, the other thing I think it's important is that it could have been that they had thought they had planned this well, and they did plan it well, because look at, they've gotten away with it for 4 years. So I'm not saying they didn't plan it well, but I think that the medical piece, I'm not sure they were aware of the medical piece. That could be something that they didn't have information on.
Well, Anne, imagine this though. If you and I if we walked into Nancy's bedroom, what would we see? We would see all of her pills.
Yeah.
It's either on her nightstand, on her dresser, or right in the washroom. They're not hidden.
Yeah.
If you take drugs that you cannot forget.
Well, I wish they'd let us into her room.
Oh, well. They
I mean, we don't have anything on the inside of the house. I mean, I think that's where a lot of the clues would be.
You're going to abduct a person who's potentially worth millions of dollars and not take their meds? You need the person to be alive.
Yeah, that
would be the first thing you would do. Is you'd say, pack a bag, take everything you need.
Which is fine if they did, but we don't know that. I mean, are the medicines still there?
It looks like her medicines were not taken.
We know her watch isn't, right?
No, they were saying that her medicine was still there at the house.
Oh, they did say that.
And her purse. Everything's still there.
Everything, yeah.
Right. I mean, that doesn't look like an abduction.
Her phone, her purse, her car, her medications, it's all there. It's everything is at the house still.
Right.
Which again, if we go back to, okay, this guy here, he can't even figure out how to cover the doorbell, which we've beaten that to death. He can't even figure out how to carry a holster correctly.
We may want to consider asking, putting out a query to every medical facility in the country for anyone that has shot their genitalia off, because with the way he's carrying, that's
Yeah.
that's a good
Yeah,
probability that
he's
happens.
running a risk level there for sure. But and then of course, he's shopping at Walmart, $10.88
Right.
for the backpack.
Right.
And they're going to have something at that point of sale of somebody, buying something.
Sure.
Those three items. The rumor is that the face mask came from Walmart, the holster came from Walmart, potentially the backpack. So, this guy's got himself, a Mr. T starter kit, and he's out there running along. It's almost too quirky to not think, okay, well, wait a minute. What else is going on here behind the scenes?
Yeah.
To your point, Gary, who's the chef?
Who's the chef?
This guy's delivering the food.
Right.
Who's the chef? That's a great analogy, by the way.
It's a great analogy, Gary.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That's how I think we have to. And I think that he's got a tarp in that bag that
Me too.
carry a person. Because and Maureen, I heard you make this point. It was when the first time I saw you talking about this case, you pointed out that hunters will use a tarp to lift an animal,
or to drag it,
or to drag.
Drag a dude.
And I thought to myself, that's what's in that big puffy bag is some kind
100%
to
something like that.
Yeah.
Right. And she was, now I got corrected on this when I said it on Court TV, and then I looked it up again, and I don't think what I said was wrong, but what I have found is that she was 5'5" and 150 pounds.
Correct.
So so I knew that. So the question is, could one person lift her, living or not living, God forbid, in a tarp and drag her to a car and explain also the blood droplets? I don't know if the blood droplets match the way that they would fall, but so how much do we think this guy could lift realistically alone, over his shoulder, etc., if she's in a tarp?
Do I think it could have happened with one person? Yes. Do I think it's likely? No. So when I walk through that in my head from a forensic standpoint, I'm thinking that he had her rolled in a tarp and he's pulling her out. And as he's at the front door and he opens it, that big, thick hickory door, pulls it open, moves things around, jostles things around, opens the screen door. And as he comes out, if she became sort of unrolled a little bit and her head just turned sideways, that could explain that type of blood stain. And even the dripping to a certain point. Maybe the reason it stopped is because he put paper towels or a napkin or her t-shirt or one of his shirts or anything to stop the bleeding and then to get someone in the car. But it goes back to the point of why. I mean, why are you going to take someone who's bleeding and put them in your vehicle, unless it's a rental vehicle, but they're looking at every rental vehicle. And I just want to also make one more point, and that is, whatever the sheriff is saying, I don't even listen to him anymore. He's just more noise to me. But I know for a fact that all the FBI people, and I'm sure you agree with this, and Chris, you'd agree too, that the local and municipal law enforcement officers that are working at this, they are not focused like this. The aperture is wide open to any bit of evidence or any tip or lead that comes in that's going to take me down a different lane. That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
And that's the hallmark of any good investigator or any good investigation.
Yeah. And, and to dovetail into what you're saying, if whoever the case agent is, whenever those leads start to come in, you go, okay, you got this, you got this one, you got that, and run, keep moving. And that way, that individual, to your point, can stay with a clarity of focus of, what do we got going at the house?
Right.
Because you don't, to your point, you don't look for abducted women in, the septic tank. Okay. I mean, and you don't call homicide in the very first night with this principle of, well, she's been kidnapped. There's something in that house that says, okay, well, let's keep this close to the chest. Let's not talk about it. We'll just do it in our debriefings. We need resources, get the feds here. Cause the feds, I mean, let's be honest with the world here. the FBI is the greatest at collecting evidence than anybody on the earth, period.
Well, we have a lot of expertise.
Yeah.
We work with a lot of universities, or we used to anyways. Our teams would, go to academia or go to the medical examiner's office and try to set up programs, work with, LAPD or whoever to help them with their crime scene analysis and collection. But we also have more bodies that can, like if you look at let's just take LAPD. When you look at their evidence teams, they're just worked like dogs. I mean, morning, noon, and night, from case to case to case to case to case. I don't even know how they keep it all straight. Whereas we can go in and say, hey, instead of 2 people at this scene, with a supervisor, like, let's go, everyone's waiting at that next call, we can show up with a dozen people and a plan and just take our time and do everything. And then we turn it over to those other agencies. So if you're out there and you have a complicated case, people, we don't come in and take over, as you can see from this case. Although I would say right now the FBI is running this case. I would say, because Nanos just looks like he just aged 47 years in the last 21 days.
Yeah, I mean, we hammered the politics behind the scenes. It's like, I don't think the public really understands that. He's dug in, and it'll sort itself out. Let's put it that way, because I think all of us are on the same page here. It's not the field agents, it's not the case agents who
not
are
the
running
detectives.
this. Yeah,
not the patrol
everybody's
officer.
working together. They're high-fiving each other. Hey, by golly, we just impounded a Range Rover. Okay, tag it, bag it, let's move it. Okay.
Or, hey, I've got an idea. I just woke up this morning and I was thinking about A, B, C, and D. And the other person's like, dude, that's awesome. That's just what I was missing when I was thinking down this thread or whatever. We love, we're all brothers and sisters in blue.
That's it.
Or tan.
And the public, I mean, the problem is, and I talked to, Karen, who was, a journalist. I brought her over from the dark side. I always tease her, but she's so funny. And she says, the whole story shifting to the fight, because there's not enough news going on out here. So they're shifting to the feds and the perception of who needs this, who needs that. And I said, yeah, I know, but we've been there, done that, and we all know what the reality is on the ground. And then the association jumps in, the president of the association, and next thing you know it, there's the politics side of things. And I just think that's such a disservice professionally to Nancy,
too,
that everybody needs to take a deep breath. If you're listening out there, we get you, we understand what's going on. But at the same time, keep pressing forward. Don't get lost in this stuff over here. Go ahead, Gary. We're almost at an hour and a half, which I promised.
Okay.
I would be at an hour and a half. But if you guys want to keep moving here, I've got a lot of questions that are sitting over in the in basket over here. And Dr. Ann, how are you doing with your snowstorm up there in Gary?
Oh, it's coming. I don't know. Gary is seeing it first. How much have you got down there?
Pretty bad.
And Maureen, you took off. You're giving us your time because you've been sick, and I feel horrible about that piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
But,
you can see how red my face is from but it's a low grade fever. I'll be fine.
Well, I'm loving this panel. I could sit here all day because I think you get a bunch of smart people together, and it's amazing where the conversation goes, and you wind up with points that just aren't being arrived at, elsewhere, and I think it's great. So what I was going to say is, I've always been very interested in court cases where the jury gets divided. Half of them see the accused one way and the other half see them another way, right? Oh, he's a victim. No, he's a monster, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that tends to happen when somebody has a personality disorder. Okay. So they're fragmenting themselves and showing one part to one part of the world, another part to another part of the world. What's interesting is the fragmentation that's going on in law enforcement here seems to me to reflect a fragmentation that is probably going on in somebody involved. My sense is that somewhere in this story is somebody who has a mask that is shown to the public and a secret other side. And what you see is this splitting that goes on around them, you see? And it can get, and I've seen it many times where it gets manifested as fragmentation in the law enforcement reaction too. Because is this kind of thing where people are sort of getting sucked into one way of seeing somebody as opposed to another. And I can't help but think that whatever went on here, if it had to do with attention, if it had to do with knocking somebody out of the way for money, if it had to do with abduction, assault, whatever, in every case, you got to be dealing with somebody who's got some kind of aberrant personality. Now, the reason that matters is because people who have aberrant personalities don't develop them the day before a crime. There's going to be a history in such an individual. They've been in trouble before. They're hot-headed. People don't like them. They have grudges. They privately threaten you, and in public, they look like a really nice person. Whoever is involved behind the scenes here is going to have a history of living that kind of fragmented existence. The other thing that's really important about the personality is the post-offense behavior.
Absolutely.
Whoever did this is going to be doing something that somebody's going to find a little strange. Is your neighbor going to the store and buying lots of equipment that you would need to take care of an elderly person? Are they buying too much food? Are they going to the asking people if they happen to use a certain medication and have some extra left? Are they acting weirdly? Are they looking at too much news about?
Are they not making eye contact with you when they used to just run their gibbers for an hour every time they saw you in the driveway?
Exactly.
You know?
So I think the post-offense behavior is going to be really important here for the public to sort of sniff out who's involved here. Now, let me be clear. I think it's very, very important to emphasize again. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on the immediate people around her because we can't. I'm just saying somebody knew her, and there's somebody who has a quality of being a little bit of a fake.
Well,
this.
sure.
And I also think that, to answer somebody in the chat, I'm not saying that I don't think that the person on the stoop didn't have a sociopathic quality. As a matter of fact, I think that the calmness under pressure is very typical of sociopathic people. So
typical of someone smoking weed, lots of weed, but
both.
Just, both. Throwing it out there.
So here's the $1 million. Go ahead, Gary. Finish your thing.
So all I'm trying to say is, I smell from experience with this stuff. I smell somebody who is partially motivated by character pathology and personality disorder. And somebody with a personality disorder can be somebody doing this just pragmatically. I just wanted money, whatever. Those people tend to have long histories of crime.
Mm-hmm.
They've been doing this since they were a little kid, right? Or somebody whose personality disorder is a little bit healthier, a little bit closer to narcissism, right? Whatever, where the person has a motivation that's more personal, but under pressure, they can get really nasty. They can compartmentalize. They can eliminate a person without even thinking. And again, think of Lizzie Borden. The jury let her go because they just couldn't see her capable of doing that.
Do you dream
personality disorder?
Lizzie Borden.
I'm fascinated by her.
Well, he's writing a book about her now. That's why.
Yeah, that's why Ann and I are. We're writing about her.
They are. So here's my big question.
Right.
It's not been confirmed. It has and it hasn't. Did they impound Annie's car?
Yes.
I can't get a straight answer. Do you know, Maureen?
And
I just heard that they did. Yes.
Okay. So here's the $1 million question, in my opinion.
Where is it?
Correct. Is it an item number in the evidence list? If it's, I'll tell you what, that's all we need to know.
A big question.
And the sheriff has, dodged it. My sweetheart has called the PIO 3 times, sent emails, and they don't want to touch that question. And
I'm trying to find out now, by the way. So if
you are right now?
I'm trying to.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So if if it's sitting in evidence, then They don't impound daughters' cars of missing women just because. And then that would lead me into the second comment, which I got in trouble for, and Nancy Grace cut me off, was ICAC. Why did ICAC show up with the UFED?
Well, I understand the impulse to, because it's crimes against children, but I also know that a lot of these, well, even in LA and all over California,
Right.
we work in task force situations. I was on many task forces, and I also did a lot of work with CNOA, which is California Narcotics Officers Association. And there's a ton of task forces there too. So my guess is, when they realized they had a serious situation there, they put out the word, and it could have been one of the guys from the Pima County Sheriff's Department was assigned to an ICAC task force. And so he's like, hey guys, we got this situation. Let's roll. It could have been as simple as that. It could have been more than that. But my first thought was exactly what your first thought was.
Yeah. I mean, and by the way, I've been with CNOA in 1985. I went to the DEA School of Narcotics Investigators back then. And so, and I met Jigsaw John at a CHIA conference in 1990 from LAPD. And so that's another story. We'll go down that lane one day, but I don't know. It just didn't look right. Didn't feel right. To your point, it was kind of, the sheriff just said, hey, by the way, yeah, these guys were available. Maybe the UFED, they were the only ones with it available, and blah, blah, blah. So
they do a really good job.
Oh, that's great.
And it's an art form. It's an art form, with all the electronics. It really is. Yeah.
No, I get it. But I just thought that was another curiosity piece to the puzzle. And then they showed up and took photographs and, came out with a bag, in the middle of the evening. It's
searching the neighbors' yards and everything. I mean, it was just a lot.
It was a lot. And this is why, I can't leave the house yet personally, not yet anyway. And that, taking the victim risk continuum, man, and just, pushing everybody down to that lower left-hand corner with mom. It's just, it's just not fitting right. Right.
No.
I mean, unless I'm missing something, which I've missed a lot of things in my life, just, but I had a 90% solvability rate. So that's a pretty good number.
That's a good number. Very good number.
So.
And what's your overall take on the case? Your overall perspective of everything going on, and or even who you think would be the type of person that we should be looking for in this?
Well, my overall take is that this was a very well planned and executed type of behavior abduction, I guess. The problem is, as I think we pointed out, and I think one of the good things about this panel is hopefully we're getting every possible idea out so that we haven't missed anything. And that's really trying to eliminate any bias that any of us might have. But I think someone had them under surveillance, and that person, I think there are at least two, for all the reasons we've talked about, the motive is personal to them, that we don't know what that is. And that's to be solved. And it looks like if it was to be for ransom and something happened and it went really south, that's why the notes, although there are notes, and I would put attention to that. I don't know whether the notes were, I'd love to know whether chat GBT was used, because somebody said they were very, maybe Chris, I mean, that they're supposed to be sophisticated or something. And that would be a place I would hope that, I don't know whether you can get chat GBT.
Yes.
No. Oh, can you? So somebody could go
you can run things through AI to figure out if that was AI that wrote it. Yeah. They use it at universities all the time.
Right.
I think what she's also asking is, can you find out who in fact wrote into ChatGPT? And my guess is the answer would be yes.
Yeah, you can.
Can you get somebody else's?
Run the IPs down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, could Chat GPT run it or Gemini
If
or
they went
something?
through different servers, you know, or different
Yeah.
browsers like Tor
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah.
But I think there's so many time gaps. I mean, from 9:45 at night. Look at how much time there is for the person to do what they're, to get or to do whatever they're going to do and to get away with it. One of the things that they don't have, which I know law enforcement is so good at, the FBI were really good, is the car. If they could only get the car, so many cases get solved by the car.
There's
And
always a car.
yeah. So
I think-
anyway, we don't know because the middle of the night she is taken.
I think part of the problem there, Anne, with regard to the car, is that if you look back at Brown University with the shooting there, and none of the cameras working, which was just obscene. It was just a dereliction of duty, in my opinion. Apparently, there was a paper written by a grad student a few months before this, where they said, the long arm of the law, and they're looking at us everywhere, and we don't like these cameras, and blah, blah. I think they just turned all the cameras off.
Yeah.
Now, in this particular area, my understanding is most of the cameras don't record. Like, you can get a speeding ticket, but that doesn't record unless you're speeding. It'll take a photo of you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of they don't have the same coverage with cameras that one might expect.
Right. Oh, and I think I heard that someone didn't pay their subscription, so it didn't go up in the cloud, because I thought, well, it certainly would be in the cloud, but that didn't turn out to be. So anyway, I think that all of that has made for a very difficult.
So, Anne, you're leaning more towards personal.
Yeah.
And, on a scale, let's just kind of scale it 1 to 10. Where would you put it?
For motive?
Yeah.
Oh.
Or I guess we don't have to really, but the why, right? The why of this thing. You're leaning more towards personal. So.
Well, the other thing, look at the two most recent cases and how long the time period was. The Tepe case, where the ex-husband took 8 years before he then goes and kills his ex-wife, and then the Brown University. Yeah. So you can, I think Gary tried to, or one of you tried to get at, we've got to look at the stressor that triggers this all. What's the grievance? If it's got to be a grievance. And then how is that played out? And look at it, could they 8 to 10 years for something that happened?
My first impression was,
what do you think?
When I saw the ICAT guys go in, I thought he's using mom's computer.
That's what I thought.
See, great minds think alike.
Yeah.
Boom. That's
why
I
have it.
So that's to be eliminated because she knows too much. That was the theory, right?
That was on the table. I mean, right? You got to.
But we're not saying that now because
we're not saying that.
Yeah.
Right, because the sheriff said that he's cleared, so we can't say journal, that. But
I'd love that journal. Has anybody analyzed the journal?
Right. That was
the
theory.
Right. Yeah, Gary.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Eddie. I'm sorry, Ed. What?
No, I said Gary said that the journals or anything in the journal.
The journals, yeah. Gary, where are you leaning?
What I'm leaning toward is that the reason we're all getting confused and we see the fragmentation is partly because there's more than one psychology involved and people with different motives. What I think is that there's somebody with a personal motive where something precipitated a need and needed to eliminate this poor woman, make it, I hate to say it, but it looks to me like it's staged to look like an abduction, but it was really the elimination of a person. I'm sorry to say that's where my gut tells me, or it was an abduction to make money that went haywire and didn't work out, because there's no proof whatsoever that she's alive, although I don't want to say that. But because there's some other hand that is involved or hands that is involved and everybody's looking at them, we're thinking about the practical psychology of the person who went in to actually perpetrate it. And so I think it's a mixture of things. As far as what might be the personal reason, I would imagine that we're going to find out eventually when this story emerges, that somebody wanted something from her and came up with an elaborate way to make it appear that something from the outside happened. so that some money could be slipped to them through a ransom story or something that we don't know about the finances, something like that. But who that would be is a matter of, we have to figure it out, because there's been the clearance of the people in the immediate circle. So I think it's something like that. And I'm not sure, but that would then put it into categories that already exist. In other words, what bothers me about this case is that we're being asked to believe that this totally unprecedented thing happened in the annals of crime, when what's really going to happen is it's going to turn out to be some kind of more garden variety thing that looks complicated right now. But it always turns out to, because there's nothing new under the sun.
Because it's human behavior.
Right. Exactly. So it always turns out to be that kind of a thing. Now, I know that sounds funny as somebody who talks about new evil, but all I mean is that the way we perpetrate things changes because of technology and the increasing disinhibition of people. But the crimes themselves aren't really that. They're never anything new. So that's what I suspect is going on. And that's why I think, and this point of driving home the why now.
Yes.
Why urgency? Was there something urgent? For example, did somebody owe a lot of money to somebody and say, can I have money? No. I'm a straight shooter. I don't get involved in things like that. You're on your own. That kind of thing. Did somebody, have a financial need in the neighborhood and come to her and say, well, you're a nice lady, could I have, in other words, something like that is going
right. We've seen that many, many times. Gary, let me ask you and Ann a question. In your experience, and this is not related to this particular case, but you sparked it with something you said earlier. Are there cases you know of, or is it common for a person to go in to perpetrate one type of crime, like let's say burglary or kidnapping, and then just because they're there and a female's there, they just decide to sexually assault her? And yes. I'm not talking about Nancy Guthrie. I'm just talking in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the difference between.
Ann. You've got
a category, indiscriminate versus planned. Yeah, felony. Absolutely.
What did you call it? Secondary felonious?
Yeah, it's in the criminal enterprise category. Yeah.
I like that, secondary felonious.
Yeah.
Yeah. In other words, you went in to commit a robbery, and while you were at it, you like the home invasion in Connecticut.
Right, and it can be you go in. Right. Absolutely. That's a very horrible case, but it's a good example.
And they assaulted.
I guess I would also just make a pitch for, they've got some, if they don't want to talk to let people know more information, please put the information through one of the platforms that are out there now that take large amounts of data, crunch it all down in a couple of seconds, and come up with some organization and some ideas that I just think I really make a plea for that. And if Maureen, if you know some of those platforms, what do you think about that? I guess I should put it that way to you.
No, I think that's a great idea, and I'm pretty sure they're probably doing that, because it's just at this point I think it would be considered due diligence when you have something like that. The only problem is some of these when you're doing AI, I think there's a vulnerability there for people to figure out what you're looking at, and because you have to go to all the open source data, because they've scanned everything, and every book and every report and everything that's out there is part of this AI machine. So it seems to me, and I'm not positive, but I would be shocked if it's not the case, that you would have to have a closed system. Like in the Bureau, we love our closed system. In law enforcement, we love our closed system that no one can get into. But it would be very difficult, if not impossible, unless someone correct me in the comments. How would we be able to access all that data and query all that data without being in some type of an open system, unless we have our own right now? Here's my response about the my friend said they're not sure about the car, about Annie's car, but they're going to try to find out for us tomorrow.
Yeah, you see, that's a big deal.
Sure.
And that's been kind of one of these just kind of quiet out there. And by the way, I think the Lake and Riley case is a good example to your question, even though that's the exterior environment, right? He actually stalked that one gal in that first apartment complex.
Yeah.
For right. And I mean, for many, many hours. And then his frustration built to where he couldn't, when she opened the door and then she slammed it on him, he left and Lakin came running by.
But his
And-
goal was
Yeah.
was a sexual assault
Right.
from the
And
beginning.
then-
Right.
Right. It turned into, a 187. So it was,
Sure.
but his goal was I always like to use the penal code, and that way people can look it up and YouTube doesn't ding us.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's very interesting psychologically, because if you have a person who is partially motivated by a sense of being rejected by women, and then they have a target to assault and feel that the woman slips away from them or they don't get what they want, that the way they perceive it, it's disgusting, but the way they perceive it is, this is just another rejection. Now I'm angry at the whole female sex. So now I'm gonna hurt the first one that comes walking by,
Yeah.
because at this point I hate the whole lot of them, like they're a mess that I'm just
Like Koberger.
like a,
Yeah.
well, that's a whole other, that's a whole other, but yes, I definitely think there was misogyny there. But Maureen and Victor Petreka at Boston College, where I do research with them, they're analyzing manifestos that are written by certain types of personalities. And the reason that's interesting is I'm thinking about the type of personality of who is sending these TMZ letters, because I personally don't think that person actually has anything to do. I think that's a different kind of psychology, but that's the kind of character that you would almost expect if somebody did this for infamy. If somebody really took her because of the attachment to Savannah and wanting attention, they'd be Zodiac killer style, putting letters and things out there. I think this is just a parasite who's trying to make money and get attention. But I'm curious what you guys think about the TMZ thing. I can't make heads or tails of it unless it's just an unrelated person.
It's interesting, Gary, you just hit on something. My good friend, the former profiler that Ann knows, Jim Fitzgerald.
Oh, yeah.
Or no, she doesn't know Fitz. She knows Jim Clemente, but Jim Fitzgerald, he just put out his profile the other day, but he was talking about, he believes with the mask on that person on the front porch, that just with the way he was dressed, it reminded him a little bit of the Zodiac killer. Like maybe he has some attachment to him or some fascination with him, or the chef in the chef in the kitchen does, and said, I need you to put on this mask. I'll get you a couple of things or whatever. Well, this is going to be interesting when it unfolds, and it will unfold, and we will catch who did it. So if you did this and you're watching this, you are about to get caught. And I just wish and hope and pray that I would love to be the person to tackle you and throw the cuffs on you.
Matching bracelets.
Right, Chris?
Well, absolutely. We'll give them matching bracelets and we'll even get you a cup of water.
Yeah.
Right.
At the
Well,
end of this.
Ann and Chris,
So let's pull the questions. Go ahead, Gary.
but do you guys, Ann and Chris, do you think the TMZ thing is a red herring, or do you think that's
It's just noise? It's just noise. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's unfortunately they're torturing. They're loving the fact that they're torturing the family.
Yeah.
This guy he reminds me, he reminds me of some serious dudes, right? I mean, just behind him is going to be, like you always say, Gary, behind him is going to be this nothingness.
Right.
It's just blank.
The
Right?
hole in the donut.
The hole in the donut. Yeah. And how many times have we sat with these guys and you just go,
Yeah.
really? It's you. Okay. And so what's going to be interesting is when they do catch him, is how many threads he's going to pull in relationship to maybe, other folks. And if he's, chasing the needle, like Maureen's talking about, if he's a druggie, and he's just the waiter, they're going to catch the waiter first, and then he's going to roll to the chef.
Yeah,
And
that's a good, I think that's the good news. If you've got two people, so one's going to have to cave at some point.
Exactly. I think that's what they'll do. They'll catch
Yeah.
the door guy because he's
And
sort
then,
of
yeah.
so
yeah,
they'll
and-
catch the door guy, and then they'll tug on the spider web, and we'll find out where the spider is.
Yeah. I mean, because, you know, and I used the analogy the other day of the El Torito problem where, you know, they took off to Mexico and we met, I leveraged the two nephews of this guy, and not to bore the audience, but we gave tickets to the nephews and said, you're going to fly down to Mexico City. You're going to go to the Vadio where he's hanging out, and you're going to take him to the phone, and you're going to call us, and we're going to tell him that we've got a $10,000 reward for the federales, and he probably wants to come back before we tell him. And sure enough, the nephew did it, and he turns himself into the San Ysidro border, and I'm standing there, and his name was Mauricio Ramirez, and I said, Mauricio? He goes, yeah. I said, venga aquí, come on over here, man.
Wow.
Like, and so this guy's going to be that guy. Go ahead.
I do think that the ransom note for I saw them in Mexico, et cetera, was just to create distance between Tucson and, you know, to just refocus or distract the investigators to bring them down more toward Mexico. But, you know, in the end, we'll see. We'll be right on some things and wrong on others. Right,
Yeah,
Ann?
absolutely.
I agree. I
That's
agree.
how it tends to go.
100%. Okay. Are you guys wanting to take some questions, or you tell me? There's a couple in here that are direct right to Maureen. I don't know how you're feeling, so I want to be sensitive
I'm fine.
and considerate of where you're at. Okay. So here's one. From an investigative point, and thank you very much, Jason. Do you make anything of the kidnapping game mentioned in her book, Dr. Burgess and Dr. Mercado? What do you make of the game from a psychological view? Is that normal to play a game like that as children? So I'm assuming, Jason, you're referring to Savannah's book and the part
Kidnapping, yeah.
Okay.
Well, very quickly before it goes to the 10-pound brains, I think it was just a ploy by a cousin who was older, who was trying to figure out a way to get young children up or very early the next morning so they could, you know, give the mom a break for mom and dad a break for a couple of days. Because, you know, I mean, my dad used to call my mom once in a while and say, when he was late, and say, Mary, don't pay the ransom, I've escaped. And we would all crack up, but my mom didn't think it was funny. So I understand some people don't think it's funny, other people do, but I think it was just an ingenious babysitter. I babysat a lot as children, and I always tried to motivate them. And I coached a lot of kids when I was young. I was a swim team and water polo coach. And so I would try to, you know, get kids to do things they don't want to do. Like if you got to get up early for a swim meet, you know, I might bring donuts, but you don't get them unless you're the first 10 kids there or something along those lines. Who knows? I don't think it's that
Are
big
you
of a
from the
deal.
East Coast by chance? I hear an accent in there.
Chicago,
Okay.
South Side. South Side, baby.
How about that? How about that?
Mhm.
Did you just call a 10-pound brain over here?
What was that?
Did you just say the 10-pound brain? I love that one.
Yeah.
Harry, you win. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, that's Ann and Gary. Yeah.
All right, here we go. I love it. Absolutely. All right. Do you think SG is suspect AGTC? She called the senator, who in turn, no, I don't think she's a suspect. No. But thank you so much. That's a great question. It's time for the FBI to take over this case. Why has this not happened yet? Can the Guthrie family request this? If so, why have they not done so? Do you want to answer that, or you want me to?
Well, they can request whatever they want, but it's a matter of jurisdiction. And right now the sheriff has jurisdiction. But if the case did go across the border, then the Bureau would have jurisdiction. But honestly, I think right now the FBI is running the investigation.
Okay. Let's see here. Are they wasting time looking for a backpack purchase? Why wouldn't a criminal get backpack from thrift store with no skew to trace? We're going to have to ask that guy in the interview room when they get him. Great question, though. Hi, Chris. Do you think tire tracks and footprints would have been examined in the driveway? I'll ask the expert. Maureen, what do you think?
One would think so,
I
but I
joke.
think, one would hope so. I did see two tire track marks that appeared to be consistent with pulling in and out the same way. And that was where we ended up finding out that that's where Nancy's car was parked, right inside there. You could see those two tire tracks hooking in. I didn't notice any other, but that was from a drone shot. So, but yes, if you were there and this was a case and you thought it was an abduction, I would absolutely have just sealed off the whole block and just started from ground zero and worked from there, worked my way out. Photographs, impressions, the whole 9 yards.
Maureen, would you agree this is some type of for hire job? In my opinion, NG did not make it home, and the porch intruder was hired to cause a scene at the door. We've been talking about that.
Yeah, we talked all night about that. I think that person, my guess is that person was hired. There's, I would say maybe two people got hired, and then the chef in the kitchen, of course, cooking up his creepy stew. And so that's what I think, but I guess we'll have to wait and see, right?
Yep. Gary, this one's yours. Dr. Picotto, does the sheriff clearing the family mitigate against, assured in your mind, the uncertainty of family dynamics you mentioned?
Well, let me be clear that when I say I'm interested in the dynamics, I don't necessarily mean in an accusatory way. I just mean to understand the psychology that was going on around the individuals to get a clear sense of what's going on. If the sheriff has cleared people, I'm not sure what the basis of it was, but we have to take that for what it is. But I just think that whenever you're dealing with a victimology, you have to flesh out what was going on around the person in many ways. But I also think that, as I keep saying, is that I think the focus seems to be on whoever this person is that we see on the camera, whoever was at that house. And there seems to be, my guess is that there's no concrete evidence to point in the direction of a cook, that they can establish. But I'm sure the thought has popped into someone's head that this person could be collaborating with someone, but probably they just don't have the data. And the what's interesting about that is that would take a pretty sophisticated kind of a character. The other thing I think, I keep thinking about in this case is, if you had lined up in front of you a child, an adult, and an elderly person, and you had to take one of their lives, most people with normal empathy would have a horrible reaction to hurting any of them, but would have a particularly hard time eliminating the child or the elderly person. There's a kind of a hierarchy of empathy.
Like the mafia.
Yeah, there's a certain kind of psychology to be able to harm an 84-year-old person that says something about somebody's empathy being or compassion being just completely dead, compartmentalized. It takes a certain type to do that. And what I keep coming back to in my mind is that kind of person is not only like that now. Whoever did this is going to have that kind of problem with compassion for a long time. And there are going to be signs, and whoever did this, if you're profiling the type of person who did this, either the person behind the curtain or the one we see on the camera, no matter what, you're dealing with somebody who's got some problem with compassion, and I would even say must be a little sadistic. Don't you think to take to abduct a probably screaming 84-year-old woman in the dark who might not even have working hearing aids, right? Who's probably terrified, right? You're wearing a firearm, whatever.
Yeah.
The kind of personality you have to be able to do that. And I'm wondering, and before we get back to the question, I mean, do you agree that this is going to be somebody with some horrifying personality?
Yes, I would agree. Problem is, how do you find somebody like that?
Well, the good news is when you're looking for somebody like that is it doesn't tend to be an isolated matter.
Right. And if you're
been arrested before.
Right. If you pay attention, if you have situational awareness and you pay attention to what's going on around you, you look at someone and you just say, that was completely messed up. Dude, what is wrong with you? You know? I mean,
Exactly.
there have to have been a number of occasions throughout both these people's life, the puppet master and the puppet, with
Exactly.
this gunslinging puppet. And there have to be instances in both of their lives where people have just scratched their head or just said, what in the hell is wrong with you? You know? So you're right. And both of those people, their behaviors would have changed significantly before the event
Oh, yeah.
and then
Exactly.
after the event, but
Sure.
especially peak activity when that video came out, because now there was a chance for both of them to get
To
caught.
get lost.
Right.
Exactly. That's a very astute way to put it. And I think the other thing is that what we can tell is if there's more than one person working together, they're able to form an alliance to make a relationship, but it's totally transactional.
Yes.
That's very different than like a Koberger type. Like when people said
Right.
Koberger had an assistant, I said no. If the person who did that before there was even an arrest, we said this. We said if this person could form an alliance with another human being, you wouldn't have had to commit the crime.
Right.
That was the whole problem. This seems like the kind of person who can form an alliance if it's transactional.
Now
You
that
get-
guy on the porch, for some reason, I think he's very poor. So that guy on the porch, I keep thinking, wow, $200,000. That would change his life. He's got to be thinking about, talking.
Good point.
But then whoever the person is behind the curtain, he may have said, dude, I'm going to give you $800,000. Just keep your head down, your ammo dry, and shut up. And we're both going to be fine. You almost have to up the ante as the reward goes up.
Do you think there's a
Wouldn't you
female
say?
in the play anywhere?
No, I don't. I'm not thinking it. Do you?
No, I'm just throwing it out there. I think it's, I just think it's really interesting that the Range Rover was in play.
Yeah, the Range Rover is another raspberry seed in my wisdom tooth. Since we're bringing out really
I
old
love
idioms that Chris always says,
I love that.
They don't get any older than that, Chris.
Hey, I'm stealing your whole playbook. That's it. After this, I'm taking all these one-liners. 2 shows, 3 and 11. I'm taking them all, and we're gonna plug them in. But no, I just think that that Range Rover, they put tags on it, they sealed it, and so there's something there, whatever that means.
And we were hearing, so I was watching this. There's this Tucson Live YouTube channel, and it's all, they're just regular people going around looking to see what's happening behind the scenes with this case. So I'm watching it, and they were saying that there was a suicide. So I thought whoever was in that car committed suicide, or should I just not say that word so we don't get?
No, you're good. You're
okay.
Fine.
But then that went away. So I'm not really sure if anyone in the chat can tell us what actually happened with that.
There were 2 hit and runs.
Okay.
There were 2 hit and runs at the time, and the lunatic that was out there saying that live, it just got out of control. It hit the ether and it just took off.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this person in the Range Rover that's totally different. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, he was the guy sitting in the back, and they were taking his prints. And he had his head down, and he's probably going to be that guy that they charged with some dope that he was out. And but he would be a good fit for the waiter, that kind of guy, et cetera. But we don't know. I mean, your guys took the van, or took the Range Rover, and unfortunately it was sold from a guy at a dealership in Tucson, and that poor guy got thrown under the bus. The owner of the dealer is, like he's involved in it, and it just turns crazy. But Ann, go ahead, Gary. I'm sorry, and then Ann, you have a question.
Actually, I think it'll set up exactly what I think Ann is being asked to say. Is one thing that I imagine we're going to find out whenever this person gets arrested is this is somebody who, in an amateurish way, studied other criminals. Maureen, I've heard you make the point that the shutting the phone off thing is getting popular because of things like Koberger and the Brown shooting. I thought that was a very smart point. I think that's true. I think this person, I mean, even the guy at the door, the outfit, the whole thing, it looks like somebody who we're going to find out in their like search history was trying to learn how to not get detected. And then I wonder if you could,
or was
on
enamored with the Frito Bandito. Just kidding.
well, but there was an amateur hour kind of thing going on. But Ann,
Yeah.
I'm curious, when you comment on this thing about the question that had been posed to you, if you also think that this person kind of did an amateur survey of other criminals and learned a little.
Oh, yes. I think that that's the to search his computer, see what he's been looking for. The other thing is was anything on social media about this? I don't know if they've done a search of that. But in terms of the question about family involvement, don't forget it doesn't have to be immediate family. It can go beyond that to cousins, grandchildren, things like that. I think that the discussion around the point about entitlement and young people having more entitlement these days is you got to think about that. That's very true. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't rule it out. I would not rule out anything until we get a little bit more.
What was the benefit? Who benefited from this?
Yeah, but if you look at the impulse of the guy on the porch, I mean, he's thinking in bits and bytes, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah, he's been paid. I absolutely agree with that. He's been paid to go, and he might not even know. He could just be, here's X amount of money, go change the video on the doorknob or whatever you're supposed to do, an act kind of silly or strange.
Yeah, I mean, this guy in the daytime's buried into his phone. Look at he's trying to figure out, okay, what do I do here? Oops, I didn't think about that. Oh, I got an idea. I'll just go grab some brush. And I have to be honest with you. One of the things that really bothered me, he's standing there right on that mat. That mat is still on the porch.
Don't get me started on the mat.
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. You're from Chicago, so I figured I'd throw it at you.
But it's true.
It's so silly.
Look at him. He's standing on the mat.
They probably gave him a couple $100 to go down.
Meanwhile, Brian Enton is up there taking pictures of it.
Yeah.
With the blood and all this other stuff. But I was like, man, oh man, this is a defense attorney's going to have a field day.
Now look at that backpack though. The reason I believe that that's a tarp in there is because I look at people's luggage and backpacks and tote bags when I travel a lot. So I'm always watching. I have no idea why, but it's a bit of a fixation because I always try to figure out what's in their backpacks, and you can see really heavy things, and I guess it comes from being an FBI agent. We're always, in airports looking sideways at people, wondering if they're up to anything shady. But this one here, if he had a bunch of heavy stuff, you would see it. And if it's heavy enough, you can almost see the outline of it. And even when I saw this the first time, it just looks smooth. It doesn't appear to be that heavy because when he bends over a number of times, the weight doesn't shift all the way one way or the other. It's in a uniform position. It appears to fill the entire void, and it does so in a uniform fashion. And that's why from the very beginning, I thought this was, and I don't know why I thought a tarp over a blanket, but it appears to be something like a tarp. And who shows up to a robbery with your backpack filled to the brim?
Right.
If you're there to take something of value.
Right.
But why? But let's say there is a cook who sends in the waiter. Why would you send them in and not tell them there's a camera that you're going to have to sort of, I mean, the person goes up to it with a plant and so forth.
Right.
It's interesting because it almost makes you wonder if some very intelligent person wanted some other poor putz to take the fall. And so you say, yeah, go in and do this, whatever. And you sort of set them up to get busted.
Or if someone said the camera doesn't work because they had information that the camera didn't work,
and they were wrong.
The camera still reacts when he walks up there, like ding, 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 or whatever sound it makes. And he was like, whoa.
And if you
What?
look at this side of it, I think he's looking through that side window into the house,
Oh, for sure. He's
as
looking
if
through the
there's
side window.
somebody else supposed to be on the other side, potentially. I mean, that's a
Or is anyone there
speculation.
with a
Yeah,
gun?
is
Yeah,
anybody in there? Right.
signaling with the flowers. Is it possible that the flowers are not to block the camera, but to signal to someone through the glass?
No, I think it's because he's high and he was just like, oh, I don't know. Like, how about this? This will work.
What do I grab?
I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the light or if it's, his pupil dilation looks a little gigantic in there, like a couple of, Coke bottles.
I will say he's a person that most people probably say has big, beautiful eyes, because when he gets close, they really do, like he has, great big
Yeah.
eyes that would be described in a positive way by people that know him.
How disturbing to think of a person with this personality that he probably has being described by people as having pretty eyes. I mean, that's something very creepy about that image, but it wouldn't be the first
creepy.
time. I was going to say, Maureen, that I also wonder what's inside of people's bags figuratively as a shrink. That's what I'm doing all day long. I'm meeting people going, I wonder what's in their backpack, their mental backpack.
We used to joke around when we would meet someone or we'd go interview someone and we'd be driving back to the office and we'd be like, I wouldn't want to check that dude's web browser at 4 a.m. Pretty sure we all know what he's up to.
You think?
Yeah.
I know.
That's awesome.
But,
Maureen, what do you make of DC text and call to AG and TC? In my opinion, this shows an involvement of TC being the mastermind of my for hire theory for inheritance. So go ahead.
That was a theory a lot of people were interested in at the beginning, but we're being told that the family's been cleared. Now, how is the family cleared? There's a million different ways that they can do it. They looked at Tommaso's phone. They saw, that it was at home during the whole middle of the night. And, there are other ways you can tell this type of thing. So if, let's say we're operating under the assumption that he left his phone at home, but he himself went out and to do something dastardly. Well, the phone would be laying flat. So let's say when they did the diagnostics on the phone, they saw that, oh yeah, just like every single other night, his phone gets lifted up, turned sideways, unlocked, all this other stuff, and then goes right back down after he uses the restroom between 2 and 3 times a night. And that happened at that night, as well as his wife saying he was there in bed with them, etc. So there's a lot of ways that they can, in fact, make a solid determination that he wasn't over there and he wasn't part of that. So I'm not really going to speak to the other stuff just because I don't want to get sued, but they've got a lot of irons in the fire right now. They have a ton of investigations going on in all these different silos, and they're doing a lot of amazing stuff. The problem now, though, is they're having problems with that, with when it comes to touch DNA, or when it comes to the touch DNA that they're trying to develop right now. They're trying to get a SNP, which is the touch DNA profile, which is like a novel, as opposed to the regular one, which is just like a license plate number. Essentially, it's like 40 numbers or something. They say that the biggest challenge with that touch DNA is mixtures, and they have a mixture. So they're trying to break that mixture apart, but it doesn't appear that they're having a lot of luck right now, but I'm still hopeful. So I'm just going to wait for the evidence to take us where we need to go. Obviously, we all wish we were inside there and we could see everything they had, especially Anne. I can hear those wheels turning as we sit here, but we just have to be patient,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the theory is still in play about the chef.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think that the signs point to it for me.
Yeah. I mean,
Me too.
The chef could be in the restaurant.
It's the only way our brains relax when we start looking at all this different information, right?
But for me, the whole curveball, for me to move from that piece, okay, Meaning I'm not going to get sued either. But did they give her back the car? If they gave her back the car, I'm done. Thank you very much. Time to move on. Nothing to see here. Okay. But if that car is sitting with a number on it in evidence, okay, I'm not leaving. And personally,
because it's going to be presented in trial, right?
right. I mean, it has to be. The defense has to have access to it. End of story. And that's the only reason you impound them. And I just go by my own experiences, like you, like everybody else. Okay. Whenever I impounded a car, trust me, I owned that car, and I owned it till, everybody's gone 25 to life. Have a great day.
Just like any other evidence, when you look at any kind of murder case, the family might say, hey, I want my dad's watch. It means a lot to me. And we're just like, you can't get it until the whole case is adjudicated.
Right.
And, I'm sorry. I wish, I wish we could do something to make you feel better, but we just can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's going to put a lot of the public at ease if in fact, number one, it was true, because it was reported to be true. So we don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's true. I just heard it like everybody else. I saw a picture of it,
Right.
Allegedly on a tow truck. So I don't know if that's, legit, what the deal is, but it's like the elephant in the room. I mean, it's just sitting there. It's just sitting there. Like, when I did a caper of a guy by the name of Brandon Wilson, who whacked a 9-year-old little boy in a bathroom.
Oh, I hate that story.
And long story short, and I talked to Park Dietz. You know Park Dietz. Dr. Park Dietz. He's in LA.
Very prominent.
Yeah. And I called Park. He was the suspect was in West Hollywood, and LAPD had him. They had him in the bullpen up there in homicide. And I called Park and I said, "Hey, Park, here's what I got. Blah blah blah." And he says, "Where is he?" That was his first question. I said, "Well, LAPD's got him. He's in the bullpen in West Hollywood." He said, "Okay." He said, "Now, what's your first impulse, Chris?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "What are you thinking?" I said, "Well, he's trying to be famous." He goes, "Exactly. Let's make him famous." Okay. And so, long story short, this guy on the porch, I think he's going to be that guy that once they figure out, how to connect him to that porch and to that DNA or anything else like that, or to that car, I'm not going to be surprised if there's a second vehicle that was used and it was a handoff, and that's where the Range Rover comes in. Okay. Because I can see two guys at the house, and I can't see one, because if we just go through the kidnapping scenario for a second,
it's too much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, wait here, Nancy. I got to pull the car around. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay?
Unless she's unconscious.
Unless she's unconscious, right?
But you would have seen drag marks. We would have seen a huge drag mark through that gravel.
Right. You would have seen something moving even across the porch, right? At some point, he's going to have to put the bag of cement down. That's always the problem they always make. We all know that. They don't realize, okay, now that I'm done with it, I got to do something with it. I got to move this body or whatever the scenario is going to be. Okay. And, that's an impulse problem. But I don't know why. I just was really concerned about that. And I hope I'm 1,000% wrong. I really do, that, everybody's off to the races. Nothing to see here. I hope I'm wrong. But, to your point, Gary, I don't think you can leave the house yet. It's somebody there's an association like Ann has been talking about. I've talked to Coop about it. I've talked to a lot of people about it. We all agree that, look, there is an association somewhere, somehow. And I'm sure Fitz would say the same thing. She's such a low risk victim that the suspect had to have crossed paths with her. It's almost like Elizabeth Smart sound asleep in her bed.
Right. And the thing about Nancy is she's so nice and so kind and so sweet that you probably could have walked up and just demanded whatever, and she would have given it to you.
Yeah. And it's probably going to be 100 people in her environment that could have been this tragic to her, right? Because she is that vulnerable because of her kindness. and her ability.
Well,
Ann,
I'm
what were you gonna
afraid
say?
to say that I suspect that whoever this is, and I agree, it could just be somebody who knew her in a vague way. But whoever it is, I suspect was kind to her face. In other words,
Yes.
the kind of person who would say, "Can I help you into the car, Mrs.
Get
Guthrie?"
out of my head, Gary.
You're thinking it too, right? It's disturbing, especially when you said the thing about the kind eyes. But you could just picture the pretty eyes. But you can sort of picture whoever did this or was responsible for it being exactly the kind of person who would pose as a benevolent figure who was scheming behind the screen, which adds a kind of an evil quality to it. But I think that's the type of psychology that you're looking at here.
Mike, I wouldn't recreate it personally. I would let him do it when you get him. Have him walk you through it, and let him demonstrate it on you. Kind of like we did with Wilson. Thank you. Okay, I've got 60 questions here, and I think that would go for like 4 years. So I'm trying
Let's
to
give
pull.
Ann some questions.
I am. I'm trying to find the best ones here for Ann.
I agree.
Yeah. And Dr. Burgess, is there anything that's coming to mind as we're just chit-chatting here?
No, I agree with much of what's being said. So I
See, this is
haven't had any other thoughts.
other stuff. Envy, anger, spite. Savannah has no job. Mission accomplished. Yeah, I mean, it certainly is a possibility. And one of the things we would do, if this was what you're hearing here from an audience perspective, is exactly what takes place behind the scenes. Only we would just have sheets of paper on the wall,
Yeah.
and everybody would just throw ideas, and then there would be 10 filters on the wall.
Yeah.
And they're called the 10 filters of profiling or behavior analysis, and you break them all down. The contact site, suspect, blah, blah, blah. You just go all the way through and you write all the ideas. And by the time it's all over, you all look at each other and say, I like that one. I like that one. I like that one. And then all the trains leave the station and everybody chases it. Okay.
Or you ask the saltiest old dog in the squad bay, and he cuts all your theories to ribbons. And then they're like, yeah, when you're doing trial prep, yeah, I'm just going to go talk to that guy because he's going to treat me just like a defense attorney would pretty much throughout the whole, it helps you out.
My car, you can program it, push button a garage door. Yeah. Thank you so much. That is a great point with one of those.
Yeah, I mean, that's an easy one to find out who had access, who had an app or whatever clicker to her garage. If you
Or a
want
handyman that had the key, right?
Absolutely.
Yep, pool guy, roofer, all the above.
All the above.
This is the dream team, Karen included. I know I married way up. I noticed the porch goon has a tiny mole or birthmark above his right eyelid. You're like the fourth person that has sent that. Thank you, Annabelle.
I did not notice that. I'm going to look for that.
I had an ophthalmologist chime in and says he has a cyst near his eye.
Huh.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting observation.
Very good.
And Truth to NG was reported missing on January 31st. The first night the sheriff said that it was Saturday night, January 31st. So I hope he misspoke, but he had put it out there. But the way he has thrown some stuff against the wall through this whole thing, I'm going to give him some grace that he made a mistake. That's all I'm going to say about that piece of the puzzle. But he should have never been at the podium in the first place. And we've hammered that down all kinds of times. If they went through the garage or some side door, why not go out the same way? Why even approach the front door to get the camera? Why even fiddle with the camera at all? Amazing panel. Thank you. Thank you, BB. Anybody want to take that? Unanswered questions right now for 100. If I'm wondering if son-in-law left garage door open and entry into home was made through there. Yeah, there's a lot of leaning towards, the other folks haven't taken him out of the play yet. Maureen, what do you think the FBI thought about the sheriff clearing the family? We already went through that one. Thanks.
But I don't think the FBI cleared anybody. I was over at the FBI the other day. A number of us were talking about it. None of us would have cleared. I mean, you just don't come out and clear people right away until you have someone else convicted. Because if you have to go back to someone, it just causes problems later on. But I understand the mindset of it for him. He's a very emotional person. But yeah, that's my answer.
Dr. Burgess, what are the odds of Nancy being found relatively alive and well at this point?
It's pretty hard at this point. This is 4th week. I sure hope she is. I think that's what everybody's thinking, but if you want to look at the statistics, it's not good.
Yeah, the numbers. It's a sad situation.
Yeah.
But we're all hopeful.
Right.
We're also realistic.
Right.
We've been in this game for quite some time. And if she is found alive, man, it's going to be what a celebration.
Yep.
Yes.
But I think the family needs to prepare for the worst just in case.
Right.
Can we determine that Nancy was at the daughter's by her Apple Watch? Yes, that can be determined. There are ways of doing that, and the CAS team can pull that off. No inheritance, insurance, or cause of death or body thought. You need a body, and you need proof of life or death for a court to sign off and kick any inheritance or insurance money out. We just saw that in the D. Warner case up in Michigan. Maybe they wanted to see SG suffer on TV. Man, that's always a possibility. Let's
And suffer she has.
Yeah.
and she has.
Yeah. Don't have to. Yeah.
Chris and panel, what can we make of the text and phone calls made to the son-in-law and Annie? We talked about that a little while ago. We all think it was, I'll just call it, there's an old term that says DLR, doesn't look right. In my opinion, celebrities need to tone down sharing their personal lives. SG's Today Show specials were revealing too much of NG, including location. Yeah, they're counseled by LAPD has a whole squad that just deals with, protection when stalkers and all that other stuff go down up there. So yeah, they're counseled all the time to maintain a low profile in their personal lives.
If there was a stalker involved in this situation, let's say targeting Savannah, you would find, almost certainly, you would have found that the person had previously attempted to contact Savannah. We know that from previous people that are stalker types, is they go back and you see countless letters that wound up, in a P.O. box somewhere. They never reached you.
Emails,
phone call attempts, whatever. You wouldn't just come at you're not obsessed with somebody and you leave them alone completely.
Yeah.
It doesn't jive.
That's exactly what Fitz said. He said one of the first things he would do is go through all the old emails because you're going to find information from her or from the stalker. But these stalkers are a big problem. I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
They are.
What a stellar panel. Brilliant minds. Thank you all. Prayers for Nancy and Sebastian.
Prayers for Nancy.
Yes. And Sebastian Robbins. Or Rogers. Robbins, 31 flavors.
Or Sebastian, right? That's situation.
Open mouth, insert foot.
Chris is hungry.
Yes. These ideas are not Oscar and Razor thinking. I'm still thinking of 39 minutes in the house thought. Trust me. I think
that's what I wanted to ask Ann.
Yeah.
What are thoughts? Ann and Gary, what are your thoughts on the 41 minutes? I thought it was, but it could be 39 in the house.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said is a very long time to do an awful lot that they can get done. We can do a lot in 5 minutes. So either there was a struggle. Don't forget it was dark. So did they have to turn lights on? They have flashlights. I mean, all of those kinds of things would be important. And I think the her fear must have been, you've already mentioned that, her fear must have been, you know,
Oh,
so
my God.
high that, and that could have been the factor that something happened in that time period that was not predicted.
Right.
And that could be another reason it took almost 40 minutes. That's a long time.
As crazy as it sounds, I just wish I could have been there to help her. I mean, there's obviously no way, but I'm sure you feel the same way, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's unfathomable to even process. And when they do catch this guy, and hopefully the person, whoever interviews him, is going to get what we need, and kind of get to, you know, an understanding of the why on this one. The why on this one. In my opinion, my second theory would be this is related to SG's job at the Today Show. Beginning with this would keep her from getting or going to cover the Olympics. That's a very interesting theory. Well, you know, when they get him, we'll find out. What are the odds that neither kidnappers or family members stepped in the blood droplets? Great question.
Not good.
Yeah. I hope that they've, Savannah has gone through her emails and things, you know, that see whether she has had any odd kinds of experiences or emails or whatever. That would be important.
Well, you know, it was really interesting. You could tell in the last Instagram messaging, you know, you can tell that she's just done.
Oh, yes.
Emotionally done.
She is, yeah.
But she's talking to a female.
Oh, she is? Why do you say that?
She
had a female stalker at one point.
Oh, interesting.
Oh,
She did, yeah.
how long ago?
I think it was several years ago, but they tend not to go away. They're pesky little bastards.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, that's important.
I didn't realize she was talking to a female, Chris. Why do you say that? I
Well,
missed
some of
it.
the references in the verbiages from the Disney movie Frozen.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Huh.
Some of the verbiage is, you know, I don't think the BAU plugged that one together. I think they did the other ones, but I think that was kind of off the cuff, and she was
Well, it
just
could have
shooting.
been her security team because she has a really good one, apparently.
Okay.
But I don't know that she would have done it without running it by the BAU folks, but I guess anything's possible.
Yeah, I could be totally wrong, but I thought that was a really interesting correlation. She used, and it was, you know, it was almost verbatim.
I'm gonna listen
And it
to
was
that
only a
again.
few words. It was only a few sentences.
Mhm. Yeah.
So anyway, I couldn't agree with your thought process more, Chris. Thank you so much, Mama. Please tell my wife. I found it weird. All communication has went to those two in particular. Why those two? They're not the ones on TV every day. So do they know them? You know, thank you. And brother-in-law headed the whole operation. He did durable power of attorney to Annie 6 months prior. Well, that's the kind of information that we definitely would want to tie together if, in fact, that was,
True.
you know, tightened up. Perp anticipates steps on porch, bites light before. Thank you. Great comment. Look at my ex-MLB player convicted of killing parents-in-law. He had a backpack that looked full for Leaf guy. Maybe it did not. Yeah, that's the guy caught on video going up to the walkway at his parents up in, I think, Canada. Lake Tahoe. This needs to be 3 hours plus live. Mikey, these things are, this is long format. There's no question. And my guests are gracious enough to hang around.
Not for much
Rick?
longer.
Yeah.
Okay. And at any time you got to
doing the
check out,
medication,
just
yeah.
say, hey, but will you come back though at some point?
At some point.
Have
If
we
the price is right-
have we lowered your property values enough, you know, to
Yeah.
where you would consider moving back into the neighborhood here?
If the price is right, yeah, for sure.
Okay, the price is right. Okay. If I got, because we're going to get Coop when he's feeling better. I'd love to get Greg and maybe get Fitz and kind of put another great panel
Chris, look
together.
on the bright side. You could have me for $19.99.
You know, Gary's cheap. Yeah, it's because he's from
Chris,
Manhattan.
and Chris is cheaper. Yeah,
whatever Gary said, I'm 20% cheaper. That's the way it rolls.
exactly.
Chris, ever since you guys highlight the condensed, unrealistic 2-minute garage timing window in the last stream, I can't stop thinking about it. They need to reenact that. Something is not right. Thank you, Janine. I agree with you, but we will find out. That is an anomaly in this investigative process. And one of the things that you learn over time, it's the very minutia pieces of the puzzle. It's not the gigantic pieces where you can put all the corners together. It's the ones that you just go, okay, I don't know where this one fits yet, but we need to figure this piece of the puzzle out.
Or it doesn't fit at all.
Or it doesn't fit at all. And this one just doesn't fit at all. And at any time, if Ann, or Gary or Maureen, if you feel that if you need to bounce, please, don't feel obligated.
Right.
Doctor,
I'm going to take off.
Thank you for being here.
I'm going to have to.
Are you going to get a podcast or anything like that? You want to talk about your company?
I have a podcast called Best Case, Worst Case with Jim Clemente. He's my co-host.
Awesome.
And then, yes, I have a company called Maureen O'Connell and Associates, and we do high-level investigations and all kinds of interesting, fun stuff.
Okay, so we're going to link to her Maureen's podcast and her company. It will all be below at the end of this podcast. At the end of this podcast, send the info to Karen, and she'll do it.
I'm going to do it in about a week or 10 days with the because we're redoing our whole website.
Okay, awesome.
Very
So
good.
I don't want the old one. I'll do the new one.
Thank you for your knowledge.
Let us know.
Yeah, I will. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Nice meeting you.
Aloha. See you.
Thanks for everything.
Aloha. Okay.
Bye.
Chris, I've got to go too.
Okay, and thank you so much. I can't.
Yeah, good
I
to
can never
see
thank you
everybody.
for-
Good to see you, Gary.
Isn't Maureen great?
Oh, she's amazing. Yeah, she's really smart.
And Ann, you know how we feel about you.
Okay.
We love Ann.
Take
Thank you
care.
so much.
Watch thou that snow.
Yes, stay out of the snow.
She's so funny.
And then there were two.
Bye.
Okay, I'm gonna keep running through these here. Dr. Gary, thoughts on someone mentally unwell, obsessed with SG, and she is aware she was wearing makeup, third video, fourth video, one-on-one personal. Would FBI then advise to keep her siblings out of video?
Well, whoever was involved in actually taking or doing whatever happened to her looks fairly organized. I mean, what we see on the video is more like sort of stupidity and improvising, but we don't see that kind of gross disorganization, randomness of a target, things like that. And as I said, the kind of delusional, kind of fixation, erotomanic feelings or other things you're talking about are generally accompanied by somebody making themselves known, contacting you repetitively, popping up inappropriately, so forth, so that it becomes clear right away that the motivation has that kind of quality to it. And I'm aware of many cases like that, because what you're talking about is the kind of thing that falls precisely under the umbrella of my kind of case, right? Where there's that overlap between severe mental illness and severe and unusual violence, right? And I just don't see the signs of that here. This looks more like a character pathology, situational kind of situation, but we'll see. The facts have to be borne out.
So Green Street, I need advice. 2 days ago, I received a package in mail, a bottle of perfume over $200 from no one I know. I looked up the perfume, never heard of it before. Smells nice. Should I be concerned? If it came from somebody that is not in your environment or either anywhere, any shape, anyhow, just be suspicious as a whole. And that would be my 2 cents. Red flag. Son dropped off mom, doesn't escort her in the house to get settled. Door open and closed within 2 minutes. Totally agree. Huge red flag. let's see, what are some of the elements of staging of crime scenes? Not saying this is staged, but what are some of the indicator staging investigators? Thank you. Any effort to go above and beyond the crime? Any efforts put into behaviorally, not only the thoughts, but to try to shift feelings and emotions? Any behavior that you would put into trying to shift the obvious into a really obvious? That would be considered staging effects. Okay. And then a MO would be anything that you would do consistently in relationship to how the crime was perpetrated, i.e., if you're breaking in a certain way, you're going to get comfortable with the way of you're doing that. And now staging of breaking in would be to break not only if you had a situation where you had a series where they're breaking windows, okay, well, staging would be they would break the door as well. And then they would break the lock, and they would do all kinds of different things. So those elements are quite clear. In fact, I did a whole thing on staging. It's in the playlist. Hopefully that will help you, and I'll do another show on it.
Right. And the book that Chris and I are doing with the Cold Case Foundation, there's an extensive section to teach about staging and also posing and how those things are different and all of that. But it's a topic, of course, of great interest to us. But it reveals a lot also about the sophistication level of a person, because even if a person is intelligent enough to think to stage, they might do it in a way that's sort of lousy. For example, because the person is not a professional criminal, they don't understand certain things that would just be really, you'd be surprised how many people don't realize, for example, that the way blood droplets fall can tell you a great deal about what went on in a room. People think all you need is blood there. They don't realize, every little thing is a clue. But Chris, isn't it remarkable that whoever did this seems to have not left very much material, like body material, in that place beyond some mixed DNA? That's pretty remarkable for the sort of imbecilic behavior that we see on the screen there.
Well, that's why I want to know, right? That's
shocking.
I want to know what that material is, that biological material. And they're not going to tell us. But right. If it's, saliva or anything like that,
Well, maybe that's why there was a tarp, if there was a tarp.
Yeah, maybe he took the gloves off and made it personal. We don't know. We do not know that question yet. Okay, this one. Would SGX be aware of layout and medical situation of NG? SG did not mention reason for divorce in recent interview last year. Could explain revenge. Husbands typically won't go after, the mother-in-law to get revenge against, the ex. But is it possible? Of course. But I don't see that one personally. But let's keep it on the table. Since police can lie, would the sheriff lie about the family being cleared? He could, but that would not be a good idea in this one. Recently sold house, half price, a home they bought. Nancy was preparing house to sell. Possible motive. Yep. Thank you. If Ellie knew Sally and Nancy expired before leaving the house via pacemaker, data uploads, would they inform the public or hold that close to their vest? They would hold it in. They would hold it. And that's why I think the sheriff is sometimes stuck in a catch-22 when he's asked, do you think she's alive? And he answers, I'm hopeful. If he knows, did Anna and Marine say their opinion on Mexico? Yes. They do not think there's a Mexico play here.
Neither do I.
And that's in the very beginning of our program tonight. Great question. Thank you. Talia Parkinson. Hi from Austin. Welcome. Best music in the world on 6th Street outside of Broadway in Nashville. Hi from Austin. The photo with no backpack gun included on the FBI website. Is there a chance this was posted to Cash Patel's Instagram by mistake? I don't know. Great question. The dude is in total darkness and the porch explains the slow movements. Yep. Could be. Do you all believe this is likely to be resolved in the near future? I think they're narrowing that. I think they're narrowing it down. I do not see this right away going cold. Did Nancy tell her friends she was going to Annie's on Saturday? Would be interesting to know. Message Brian Enton to see if he can find out. Thank you, Nikki. Great question. I wonder if NG had a subscription in the past, if TC neglected to renew it on purpose. This should be one of the future of the Today Show. That's a good point. Why do all the experts turn a blind eye to Mexico or cartel? The head of the New Generation cartel just got taken out today. Big war there. Well, yeah, I don't think we don't think it's a cartel problem at all because, you know, now they have to manage an 84-year-old grandmother while at war, and they wouldn't do that. They would resolve it. As you can tell, they're not afraid to walk into malls and just shoot innocent people. And they're not gonna wait for 8 million in Bitcoin. It just doesn't fit. Just doesn't fit. But thank you so much. It's horrific to entertain, but it's completely off base to speculate whether the crime is related to organ transplant trafficking. Yeah, interesting. Creator in Tucson went to Walmart to get the backpack. It kept locked up due to homeless people stealing it. Theft isn't traceable. Was a homeless guy paid to help? They are not domiciled to so harder to find or be missed. Yeah, that's a great point. At this point, anything's possible that somebody could be paid. Like Gary says, this could be just the waiter at the door and the chef is in the kitchen.
Right.
It's a great analogy, by the way. I think no one has turned in porch goon because of a acquaintance of criminals too. Look for the tiny mole above the right eyelid. Thank you so much, Annabelle. Appreciate that. Romance, CPS scam, extortion gone wrong. Elderlies are targeted. Love your puppy. Juju technology there. 764 Satanic International Online Youth Group who evaluates crimes via tier system. Petty to violent. Group leaders dare underlings on Kick Telegram. Yep, 764. They are interesting group. Dr. Burgess, would someone in healthcare have a way to stop Nancy's pacemaker externally, keep her from being detected by the sniffer? Probably not. That will keep on going until the battery goes out, and then it would reconnect if it gets within a distance of whatever the device is synced to. Could a perp have gotten into Nancy's house while she was invited to dinner at Annie's and be part of the overall plan? Absolutely. That is a great point. That is a possibility. I would think if perps threw backpack, gloves, ski masks, etc., homeless would have those items by now. Thoughts? Great point, Kevin. Great point. Fish with heart. Love it. Thank you so much for your kindness. Jenna, Jenna, I love it. Wonderful panel with guests, Anna and Maureen, weren't they? Weren't they amazing? Please recap what's known about AG and TC's son, adult or minor. If minor or driving age, did he take NG home? Can panel rule him out? I don't know much about the son. I've heard two different things. I heard he was 11 or 12. So he probably couldn't have driven if that is its age group, right? Silent majority, pants, $51, moral shoe, $150 to $180. That's an expensive outfit. Great panel and discussion. Thank you. And thank you, Adopted. Nina Drew, where is Derek Collier back in court? Is he detained? He's in Tucson. They extradited him to LA, or from LA to Tucson. He just had a hearing last Thursday. Given your experience, what percentage chance do you think Tomas and Annie are involved? You're asking Gary or me? Gary, you answer.
I didn't fully understand the question.
Give a number, 1 to 100. What's the percentage you think Annie and Tomas are involved?
I'm not comfortable answering that question because they've been cleared. I think that I would rephrase the question: what is the likelihood that somebody in some way knows the victim? That I would say is extremely high, but the degree to which that person is close to her, I'm not getting into that. I'm only saying that I think the person has crossed paths, and I apologize. There's some in the audience is pointing out that I give long answers, and I'm sorry about that. I don't believe in sound bites. I have a tendency to give long answers, but
I didn't see that. I'm
yeah.
on another page. I can't see that.
Well, I'm you know, I'm not interested in short answers. I think they're you can't be nuanced in a 2-second soundbite. But I think the appropriate thing to do in this situation is to say, if people are cleared, then we have to respect that. But I am comfortable saying that somebody crossed paths with this woman in some way, at least the cook, right? Somebody who missed much of the show, by the way, Chris, I thought it was sort of funny, came in the chat and in a confused way said, wait a minute, Nancy Guthrie had a cook? Because they thought we literally were talking about because so they didn't realize we were making a metaphor.
Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
The news replay showed FBI seized Annie's car. Okay, well then we need to establish whether in fact it's in evidence. That's a big clue. Personal opinion. There's a second person on the porch. I've seen all of those videos. I've watched those shows, and we'll see. I do believe there's a second person involved. That we can definitely agree with. Do you think that after remove the doorbell camera, he walked away to see if cops would arrive? When no one showed up, he came back with his car. You have to manage Miss Nancy. So that would put a second person there as well.
But Chris, there are a few things that, if you lay it out, I mean, there are a lot of assumptions that one has to make. One might even say deductions that we have to make. But one thing I was hoping we would do tonight is sort of lay out what we're more confident at this point saying, because the only facts that I'm confident about are that the person didn't act alone, that there is a sort of a personal mixed with a pragmatic motive thing going on, which is likely throwing us all off, and that there was a vehicle involved, that it probably was more than one person, but that's pretty much it. I mean, everything else I'm like sort of iffy about, but those four things I think we agree, right? Do you, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. And this one right there, that question right there, if they still have AT's car, how can they be cleared?
Well, I'm still,
that's my opinion.
Waiting to. I just think we have to go by what the, but
no,
yeah, I get it. Yeah, but I think, Chris, that one other thing that is, I would like to think, and I have said it a few times, I would like to think that whoever really was behind this, that law enforcement is giving them enough rope to hang themselves. I think they're just not going out there in the public or letting it leak or whatever. But they have to, if they're capturing all this electronic data and whatever. I mean, it's not like the person went like a ghost and just evaporated into nothingness. I think they may just be keeping their mouths shut about who they're eyeballing. And it may be that they're waiting until somebody goes and tries to spend money or transfer money or use or send Bitcoin or whatever. And then they'll go, gotcha. You never know. You could have a situation where there's very specific people that they're eyeballing. But I think we do have to respect when somebody's cleared, because I think the main motivation for the sheriff to do that was that the way he saw it was that he felt that there was a public kind of lynching of people that he viewed as being victimized by something. And so he was trying to make a sensitive point. And I think we have to take that for what it is,
Yeah, and a lot of that is his own doing. The sheriff.
Well, that's a whole. I mean, Oh, who's saying? Oh, thank you. I appreciate
Yeah, I think the sheriff, unfortunately, in a lot of this, has created the problems of miscommunication even within the public. If you really want to see, I mean, just look what happened in Mar-a-Lago this morning with this guy that just got shot. The sheriff stepped up there. He said, "Okay, guys and gals, world news. We're going to tell you what happened, and then I'm going to tell you what I can't tell you." And he told them right away. Guy came in with a shotgun. Here's his name. Here's the guy from Secret Service. He's going to tell you what he knows. Here's the guy from the FBI, the SAC. He's going to tell you what he knows. And then the other stuff we're still trying to figure out in the investigation. Okay. When we get that information, we will provide it for you. Okay. Until that time, I really can't answer a lot of your questions. Thank you very much. Agent so-and-so, that guy stood up to the podium and said, a guy at this time, this date, this morning came up. Secret Service engaged him with another officer. He's deceased. We're investigating it. ATF stood up and said, here's the name of the guy. He's 21 years old, out of so-and-so, such and such. He had a shotgun. He's dead. 10-8. All units cleared. Instead, we get, well, I don't want to, kind of about, well, perhaps, oh, that's a possible. We're not going to talk about that. That's the difference. And that's the confusion. And the reason for that, and the reason everybody is pounding him, is he should have had a press conference with his PIO, let his PIO answer all the questions, and let him go back in your office and wait and work alongside the FBI. Stay out of the limelight, okay, and just leave it alone. Let your people and your team do their thing. Instead, you know what he does? He parrots partial pieces of the communication. And that creates a lot of confusion. And a lot of confusion creates a lot of doubt. A lot of confusion creates a lot of anger, a lot of, misjudgment, and it throws a lot of shade on people. What he should have said was, let's just use the car for a second, in my opinion. We impounded a family member's car because this was the last place mom was seen alive as a passenger in this vehicle. We're going to process it for evidence, and we'll let you know when we let it go. Next question. Well, do you think there's blood or anything? You know what? I can't answer that question yet. We haven't processed it for evidence. Next question. Thank you so much for that question. And it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. You don't let the media put it out into the environment that they have a source that says the car was impounded. And if they do find it, i.e. it is impounded, then the sheriff needs to get to that podium as quickly as possible and says, yes, in fact, we have impounded the car and we're holding it. He doesn't have to tell them why. He doesn't have to tell the world why. He just has to do it, because that creates mistrust to the public. And it puts them under the radar. Because if you're coming out and saying everybody's cleared, thank you very much, have a great day, and then all of a sudden they find out, the public or a jury finds out that they weren't cleared, hypothetically, because you're still holding their car. Can you imagine a defense attorney putting the sheriff on the stand saying, isn't it true on such and such a date you cleared my client, hypothetically? I'm not saying they're going to be clients, but let's play this out. Isn't it true you said that? Well, yeah, I did. Well, did you lie to the public? Well, yeah. Well, what else are you lying about my client? What else have you lied about, Sheriff? You see, when you're dealing in that level of scrutiny, Ann Taylor just made $5.2 million off of Brian Koberger. You don't think there's going to be some high-powered, attorneys that are going to step up and say, I'll do it for free just for the publicity. Okay. And that's the problem with, not telling it by the way it should be, by putting it out there. Okay. It just has to be. You gotta, and you can't be afraid of it. I mean, my gosh, this world, these politicians, these new age police chiefs and all these other people that are afraid to tell the truth. Just tell the truth. The public can handle it. The public can handle it. I mean, I've walked out of crime scenes, literally, Gary. I had a crime scene with 17 satellite trucks in front of it.
Dear Lord.
From around the world. From around the world. You know what? Not once, okay, did my chief get in front of those 17 trucks. My captain did. Wow. After he came and we talked. And right. The PIO said, hey, here's what you say, here's what you don't say, here's why you say it. End of story. It's not complicated. You don't tell a bunch of Hispanic volunteers today, mothers for Tucson, that you people need to get out of here. No, you know what you do? You pull them in and you have a meeting with them at the sheriff's department. What he should have said was, you know what, you folks want to help? You know what? Come to the sheriff's department. Let's talk about how you could be of service to Miss Nancy Guthrie in this investigation. Come on up here. But he shut them off. And you know what they're doing? You know what they were doing out there today? They had rods and they were poking the ground like search and rescue. Okay? Come on. These people want to help. Then put them to work. But there's ways of doing it. And unfortunately, that's not what's happening here. Look at Maya Miliete. She's been missing for almost 3 years. Every Saturday, a group of volunteers in San Diego goes out and looks for her body to this day. Do you see the chief of police in Chula Vista who arrested, Larry Miliete? Do you see her getting out and saying, no, you people get out of here. Stop doing this. No. And so, don't be afraid, not you, but the public, don't be afraid to grab the truth and then, kind of go with it at that point. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but Chris, part of the problem is, because anyone who knows my writing and things I said knows that I'm very interested in the intersection of crime and the time in which we're living, how that influences the shape, the scope, the nature, the motives, etc. of crime. And what is important to take into consideration is that, and I think in many ways one might argue that it started in the 70s, but really in many ways peaked with the OJ case, is that crime has become television for people. And in many ways, it was anticipated by that amazing movie Network, if you remember that movie from years ago with William Holden and Peter Finch. But it's become something that people watch as if it's one big giant episode of Murder, She Wrote or something. And as a consequence, there's this need to tell every single drop of the investigation and everything else to the public who are hungry for the latest installment in the case. And it's interfering with the capacity to just do an investigation and not have anybody know what's going on. People are leaking all over. They're selling things, maybe. They're going on talk shows. They're whatever. And what you wind up with, not in this case necessarily, but in a case. And it gets impossible sometimes even to get a fair jury in a given place. And, so I think that's what's happening, is that these cases are turning into television. And then the people that are investigating develop an identity crisis. Am I feeding the TV beast, or am I investigating this and keeping a low profile? I'm not necessarily talking about this case. I'm just saying I think that's an important thing in the culture that's happening now.
Yeah,
You
but
see what I'm saying? You have to
I
figure out.
understand what you're saying, but I
Yeah.
think let's not forget this stuff. This isn't new to the, the 21st century. I mean,
No, no, but
they used to stand in the courthouse with the light, remember, with the balls, hey,
yeah, but
did you do it, Hank? Okay.
information flies now at a speed that's outrageous.
Well, of course, but it's always in the human condition to want to do it, to want to be curious, to want to see it. I mean, uh, there's all kinds of stuff that has always been, and that's why they created, media training. I mean, Karen went to the FBI's, it's an elite media school that they have. Okay. And, she went through those courses and stuff as an experienced journalist. Okay. I mean, she saw it from both sides of the coin, and the public today, if you just tell it the way it is, as more law enforcement agencies embrace social media, embrace the public's desire to want to know, then you can feed them with knowledge.
But you have to be judicious in how you do it, and you can't get caught up in it. You
I
just
totally
give
agree.
just enough. You give just enough. I mean, remember the old saying, and I've heard it attributed to Mark Twain and to Winston Churchill, but you know that old saying that says a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on.
Yes.
Well, that's sort of so that was bad enough before the internet. But now, a piece of information gets out there and it goes flying, and then nonsense gets mixed in. Everybody's got their opinion. People that have no training whatsoever opine, and then nonsense gets mixed in. And the other thing that's very dangerous is that the public has its own sort of court of opinion, and sometimes they arrive at a conclusion that just doesn't get borne out by it. So there's that problem too. So I just think it's very, very hard to be somebody in that position, and people screw up. They slip up. They say too much. They forget that it doesn't matter what the public thinks. You just say, "This is an active investigation, and I have nothing to say."
Well, yeah, and that is, to your point, that's my point as well. That you just have to, you just tell the public that, look, here we are. And, I'm sorry, I'd love to answer that, but I can't right now. It would impact the investigation and it would harm getting Nancy back. Look at this picture.
Oh,
This is true. This is what happens on social media. Okay. I mean, you can't make this up. Okay. This is the reality of our society right now. Our society projects one side, but on the other side, it's rotten. And if the sheriff would embrace this and realize you can't always be projecting just that shiny apple, because the public's going to think, well, wait a minute, there's something rotten on the other side. Look at they're calling for the FBI to take over. They're calling for, this guy to be, kicked out of office or whatever. Okay. Well, and that may be, that may be justified at some point, but you don't call for it right in the middle of an 84-year-old woman missing and he's at the helm. You can't do that right now. Okay. That's like telling, the captain of the Titanic, hey, we're sinking, and him going, we are? Right? He knows he hit the iceberg, and he's going to have to try to do everything possible, to try to mitigate that risk, to keep at least a couple of those survivors alive. And how many of them survived? How many of them got on the lifeboats? a bunch, not a whole bunch, but some. So he did his job. And that's what I'm saying. He's hit the iceberg in this case. There is no question about it. Okay. But you don't need 5 captains coming to the bridge and yelling at you, you hit the iceberg. The guy knows he hit the iceberg. He knows it. Trust me. Okay. And the fact now that he is, he is socializing a lane of one-way communication that is bugging guys like Brian Enton now. Right? Brian Enton is a great journalist. But again, we're going back to this principle, put them all in the room, the same room, tell them the same story so everybody heard it the same way. Now they're going to report it differently, but keep everybody happy, because now you've got one reporter saying, well, why are you giving it just to them? Well, no. That's like, snafu number 111064. Don't do that. Everybody comes in the same room and everybody gets treated the same. 100%. 100%.
Well, Chris, it's interesting because one of the things I've been theorizing about is that for some reason I have a feeling that it's when this case stops being front page news that it's more likely to get solved. There's something about, in my mind, when it slips out of the public eye and law enforcement could just do its thing and whatever, that I could see it getting solved with, because there's something that what I'm trying to say is that the high profile nature of it is feeding it from a side that is just becoming noise that's getting in the way. And, so for example, let's say somebody who does have some connection, a person who, I'm making this up, painted the walls on the house, let's say a person who does sort of know her. Well, they know everything that everybody is thinking. It tips them off. Don't deposit the money. Don't communicate anymore with the higher ups in the plan. Hide this. Don't, keep a low profile. Don't leave town. Don't whatever. In other words, it tips you off, and it would be almost better if it just were left to calm down a little bit, because eventually it's like, listen, if you've ever lived in New York City, at some point you come home late at night and you flick the lights on and the roaches scurry. You know what I'm saying? They're only going to come back, or the mice, they only come back out when there's quiet for a little while. Leave a little while, then out they'll come. See? That's the whole thing. Right now, that's what people do. They stay still when there's a lot of noise and light. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, look, the reality here is the sheriff is damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Same with me. If I talk about the sheriff, I get hammered. If I praise him, I get hammered. Okay. So it's like
people hammer you all the time, Chris.
It's kind of like the guy in the back seat who used to spit. Okay. It's like, are you done spitting? Okay, because now I'm going to put a bag over your head. Okay. And because that's what we had. We used to, we didn't have those nets that they have today. I used to have what was their number? 18 bag from Safeway. They became the Unknown Comic in like 5 minutes. Remember the Unknown Comic, Gary?
Oh yeah, Murray Langston.
Yeah,
he wasn't unknown anymore.
and they're now spitting into their own bag. So social media, and even our chat, social media is all about, this is an expression of this. Okay, that's what it's about.
That looks like a metaphor for personality disorder to me.
And it's a great metaphor. Okay. But so the problem is, right, if I was standing next to the sheriff, I would say exactly what I'm saying here to him. And because it's not, I'm trying to give the guy some grace, but you can't keep going out and sticking, your mouth, open mouth, insert foot. You just can't keep doing that. Okay. Eventually, you're going to get to a place where you just say, you know what? Let him burn. He'll burn. Okay. However, not at the expense of Nancy Guthrie. And you heard Maureen tonight. I mean, she's a straight shooter. She comes from the same school I came from. Okay.
She's great.
So, right here it is. Sorry, you got to smell the coffee because it's brewing. Okay, and you can't get around it. Okay, we didn't have all the stuff they have today, and even today, when these guys get up there and they do their thing. Okay, I love the guys. I had a case one time. We flew to Ohio. It was a caper. Actually, it's sitting right back over here. It was from 1968, a woman that was strangled underneath and stuffed underneath a bed.
Okay.
I should have you look at that case with me one day, Gary.
Sure.
Because I still have my copy of the case, and I want to solve that case. Anyway, I go to interview this guy.
I wonder if I have it in my database.
You won't know it.
Oh.
I've got it. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that one right now. I went over there. I went to Ohio, and this guy shows up at the airport. Okay, and he looked like an Eagle Scout on steroids. He had every badge, SWAT, ambulance. I mean, it was just a row of ribbons. I mean, 5 stars on his collar. Literally, it was like
One of those.
Is this guy out of central casting? What's the deal here? And when you see those guys, you just know that this is going to be really interesting. Okay.
I'm picturing it with all those badges. That's hysterical.
Yeah.
Chip.
Literally, he looked,
Right.
He looked like an Eagle Scout on steroids times 6. Okay. And I looked at my partner, he looks over at me like, I know. He goes, and it was like, hey, we got your car right over here. We're going, we'll go blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, okay, right. I'm waiting for the director to say, and cut. Okay. So we go. And when we left there, I was like, did that just happen? Is that reality here? So sometimes, these sheriffs and, certain people, personalities, and myself, I mean, people would think I'm quirky. I mean, just look at the chat, so every once in a while they're, so I don't take it personal. I don't care. I sleep like a baby just ask Karen. I sleep like a rock every single night. Okay. Because I recognize that, I've talked to a lot of people I've talked to people off of bridges like you. Okay. And I've brought them to people like you and say, here, Gary, fix him. Okay. Here's what I told him while he was on the bridge. Okay. And Doc goes, okay. Yeah. Okay. We had a doc, his name was Pete Farmer. Okay. You bring him in, what do you got, Chris? Yeah, we got a 72-hour here. Hold it. The spaceships are talking. Okay, great. Come on, room 4. Thanks, Doc. Here's my, 5150 form, 72-hour hold. See ya. Bye. As I'm walking past the curtains, and you guys can fix them. Okay. Well, it's the same in the chat. This is just not our chat, but this is just a curtain.
But Chris, you're saying something indirectly that's very important, really very important, which is that in this TV internet generation, where people think of these cases as a kind of an intriguing puzzle or an entertainment for some of them. For some of them, it's very personal. Some of them, they identify with the victim because of their own experience. Some people have been abused or treated badly and are interested in in crime as a way of dealing with that. There's all different reasons, but for some people, it's a kind of perverse form of entertainment. And for people like that, what happens is that they forget that when it's all over, the curtain comes down, so to speak. There's been an adjudication, the case is over, that there are decades of damage done to the victims' families, the people that, the victims' families, the people, whatever. And then it takes people who are in professions like us to kind of go around, and with nobody ever knowing about it, helping these people and cleaning up all the damage that's been done, trying to help people move past, make meaning out of it. And then what happens, of course, is it's completely thankless, because you come on a program and you get a person who goes, "You're an idiot. You don't see it the way I do," whatever, that kind of thing. And you're sitting there going like, I spend my entire life helping people and dealing with this stuff up to my neck, right? And the person who's addressing you has never left their tatty true crime novel that they're reading. That's the extent of the experience.
Well, I'm not worried about those folks personally. I love them, like our audience.
I guess so, but I'm just saying, like, what I'm trying to say is, like, you got to take it from where it comes.
Yeah, it's the one goofball,
Right.
that tries to, sneak in every once in a while and,
There's
kind
a
of
few of those characters, yes.
poke you in the eye.
Just
all the
ignore
time.
them because they don't know what
I
they're
do. Actually, I have fun with it. I like putting them up, and personally, and Karen's like, please don't do that. I'm like, why not?
Well, but I just
the guy's got a spaghetti strainer on his head at home, okay, and he's got a pair of hockey pads on, and he's hitting me in the chat. So what?
Yeah, but what I'm getting at is the idea that people don't realize that these are real human beings involved, that real people have lifetime. Like, just think, for example, when this case is over, when it's no longer on the front page, when it's just a kind of historical story in the annals of crime, right? It's solved or it's not solved, and it goes down in history. In the final analysis, you have members of a family that one way or another may never be okay again. You see what I'm saying? I mean, they may find their mother alive and she may have seen hell, and they've gone through hell for weeks.
Yeah.
That they may find out that she's deceased and God knows what happened to her. Or maybe they don't find out what happened to her, and every night they're waking up going, it could be the worst thing. It could be the worst thing. I mean, I've had to be in the room with people who have lost family members to violent crime, and they're never okay, ever. And I just think the public sometimes doesn't understand what really goes on in these lives behind the curtains. That's why I'm so proud of being part of the Cold Case Foundation.
Yeah, I mean, the people that think they're living in other people's heads,
Yeah,
you don't have a clue.
no,
Let's get back to the questions. We got questions here.
Yeah, but it was important to say that, because I think we can't. What I'm getting at is I'm sort of indicting, in a lot of ways, this sort of TV culture that we're living in, and I think that it's you're seeing a lot of it.
There's a lot of narcissistic sociopaths out there today. I mean, let's be honest, right, Gary?
That's what it is. Yeah.
And they're out here and they live behind a glow. Okay. Did you know the next generation coming up? They're doing studies. You'll know this more than anybody. Their IQs are lower than the last generation.
Because of you don't need to learn anything.
That's my point.
We're basically cyborgs without these being in our brain.
And did you know my generation was the last generation to never have technology?
No, yeah, well, right.
Think about that. My generation, we didn't have technology. I'm the very my group, okay, and that's why we're critical thinkers, and we can take ideas and actually make sense of them. Okay, instead of go ogle. Okay, Google. Go ogle. That's what it means. Go ogle. Go look for something. Okay. So the generations are actually getting dumber. They're not getting more, they're not getting brighter. Okay. What's the old saying? Spread the poverty. Okay.
Well, yeah.
I mean, just look at the people that just voted for the mayor in New York City. He's telling you guys to go shovel snow. I mean, do you really think there's a big intellect behind that decision? I mean, honestly, you live there. I mean, and I'm not going to, but I'm just saying, I'm not going to go there, but we have a group of people or a subset of people that they can't even figure out how to solve problems. Okay.
Well,
Here we go. Let me answer.
Let's get back to the question.
I'm not going to go.
Yeah. But it's a fascinating conversation. So
we'll talk offline.
Yeah.
Let's see. Lots of talk from sheriff about DNA snag. If that's for sure, what's happening, or could that be strategic? At this point, sweater weather, love it. Sweater weather. I'm not sure how to answer that with that guy. But I wouldn't think it would be strategic. I think they're just taking a little bit more time to kind of parse things out. But I think Maureen answered that correctly earlier. Plants used to hook up camera. I learned, look how he bends plants. Yeah.
I'm a huge plant person, so I was interested in that too. I easily could have been a horticulturalist.
How he folded them.
Yes, that's my great love in life.
Great point. Elizabeth, my question is, do you think SG is suspicious of AGTC calling the center for 911 calls? Makes me wonder if SG doesn't believe Annie and Tommaso. You know what? That's a great point. Could be. Plant use, there it is again. I already put that one up. Sorry about that. Perhaps it was disguised.
Chris. What is the person suggesting that it was bent for what reason? Like to use the stem to manipulate some small part of the camera? Is that the idea?
I think so. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I hadn't heard that before, but it's intriguing. I mean, it has to be pretty strong.
Perhaps it was a disguise in the backpack for Nancy, changed her look to easily get across the border.
I don't think the border is in play, but that's just me.
Yeah. Why do all SG messages use entertainment verbiage? Great question, Autumn Falls. That is a good catch too. The more I think about this, I do not believe this is coincident with Savannah leaving for the Olympics the next day. It certainly could be connected. We'll find out. Dr. Gary, what do you make of AG sitting on the couch next to SG and brother smiling?
I just think it's inappropriate for me to comment about that, because that once somebody has been cleared, we have to respect that. I don't want to interpret it. What I saw in those videos was, people having a wide array of potentially diverse emotional reactions to what was going on. I don't want to interpret it further than that, because there's an implication to the question, and I think I just rather stay out of that.
Yeah, too. Problem now is news channels have become 24-hour anchor commentary, not just news. Yeah, when you become the story, then you're right. You're not news. Or if you're trying to solve the crime, you're not a news anchor or a news reporter. You're an investigator. Okay.
Right.
And that word investigative journalist has gotten confused with journalism ethics.
But Chris, this point about the fame of Savannah, like if it figures into the victimology, is really important, because if it turns out that they didn't know that she was Savannah's daughter, that's a pretty amazing coincidence. And I think Bob is always saying on your show, I don't believe in coincidences. But it would take quite a coincidence for someone to target her and not have any idea that she was the daughter of someone prominent and worth a great deal of money and all of that.
Bitcoin?
What about it?
You're gonna kidnap the mother of a prominent personality and then ask for Bitcoin?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. It's there are other ways it might figure in, but I'm just saying I think ultimately that let's just how do I say this? I think whoever did this knew that Savannah Guthrie was her daughter. I do not think this was just a random thing where it's a complete coincidence. There have been cases in history where a person is abducted or killed or assaulted or whatever, and they happen to be related to a prominent person, and the person didn't know it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there are stories like that. But don't you agree, Chris? This person knew that this was Savannah Guthrie's daughter, or aren't you? A mother. Aren't you
I'm
willing
saying the person had contact with the house.
Oh, I definitely think the person has at some point had that kind of familiarity. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there are neighbors that probably didn't know she was Savannah Guthrie's daughter. I'd put money on it.
But in this case, the person had to know, how do I say this? Unless she herself was worth a great deal of money,
Mhm.
it would figure in somehow that they were connected to someone who does.
And what would project that? Every house in that neighborhood
Or
is
are they
worth the
worth a lot of
same
money?
amount.
Unless I'm not aware of the value of the property. It was the
It's
house
like a
itself worth-
$1.2 million property.
Oh, well, that's different. I thought that I didn't realize that it was a
But
value.
everybody around her also has a $1.2 million property.
Because I thought, is Tucson, I mean, I guess I have to familiarize myself a little bit with property values in Tucson.
Yeah, I
But
mean that area is like the Scottsdale of Tucson.
oh, I see. So there's some affluence there. So then it's possible that she could be financially targeted without someone knowing that she was connected to the daughter.
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yep. It was they bought it less. Here's a good one because Karen pulled up the property stuff too. So 50 years ago was worth less than 100,000. Yep.
But
My
but
parents
also
bought their house in California for 40,000, 1972.
but she's been public about she was like on
It's worth
TV
over
with
$1
her
million
mother,
today.
right? Wasn't she on TV with her mother?
Yeah, there was a program, a couple of weeks before. Okay.
Couple of weeks before they were on TV together?
Or whenever that program, yeah, it was a special where they've revisited Tucson.
That's very interesting.
Right.
Chris,
Yeah.
don't you think that may figure into things too?
Well, the suspect had to know, okay, that they had to know the pattern of life of Miss Guthrie. I mean, more so than the daughter. They had to know Nancy. You know, how did he know she was going to be home?
And alone.
That's right. I mean, just that simple question. Why would he choose 2:00 in the morning thinking, okay, well, she's in there? Well, how does he know she's not back in New York with her daughter?
Right.
I mean, let's reverse it.
Right. Why so cozy?
Right. Why? Exactly. So I'm going to get through some of these. I've got 11 more.
Okay.
Are there any common demographics found within perpetrators and elimination killings? Are there any commonalities?
It's something I'm actually writing about as we speak. And they tend to be more male than female. They tend to be closely related to you, like first degree or second degree relation. They tend to be people of above average intelligence who are not necessarily psychopathic, but are willing to, shall we say, do whatever they have to do to get whatever they want. So they tend to be described as a little bit selfish or egocentric kind of people. And they tend to be people who have very shallow transactional relationships where they find themselves often highly dependent on certain people and doing whatever it is they need to do to get something from people, but can just as quickly cut you off. That's been my sense from the few score cases of it that I've looked at. But in this particular case, it becomes tricky because if there is an elimination situation, it's entirely possible that it's someone with no relation, but that just knows her. And then it just seems to be, that would just be more of what we call like an instrumental or a practical kind of motive, where it's about money or something like that. But someone in the audience is asking what my book is called because they want to read about it. It's called The New Evil. Yeah, there it is, The New Evil, with that frightening face on the front. You know, my nephew named that face, that face. When I did when that book launched, I did a thing on social media to, like, you could win a free copy signed if you could name it. And I liked my nephew's answer so much, I just ended the little contest. And because he looked at it, it was like laying out on the table, and he called it Trixie. And I said, why would you call it Trixie? He said, because they look nice, but they trick you. And I thought, how clever. And so now I call that face
the mouth of babes.
Yeah.
So
Well, now I call that face
Clinton, okay. Now we got the Clintons killing or kidnapping 84-year-old women. Hello, what are your thoughts about the crime scene being staged? Do you think whatever happened to Nancy happened at her house? Hello from the Dominican Republic. Hello from the Dominican Republic. And we haven't taken that off the plate. And we just had 3 hours worth of conversation on that. Welcome.
Chris, I don't think we can. I know it sounds crazy, but I don't think we can take it off.
I'm out in the desert, not far from Nancy. I heard bumping and scraping the doors and froze. It was 5 javelin and unless they're plotting. You know,
wait, what was? Can I see that again, Chris?
That's animals. Javelina. And you know what was really interesting? Remember when the reporters were there within the first couple of nights and they heard all the coyotes?
Oh, that scares me when I think about.
Remember the movie City Slickers?
Oh yeah.
It was almost like watching a version of City Slickers. You know, the reporters coming out there, they're sending people out from New York, from your neck of the woods, Manhattan. Oh my gosh, you should see the terrain out here. You've never been to the desert? Oh, that's right. You've never been to the desert. And you mean there's no subway system out here? No, it doesn't exist. I had a bunch of guys, I brought them from NYPD, and we went to help in Oklahoma with some wounded veterans. And on this area that we were at, they were going to go hog hunting, the veterans. And so I said, hey, I need 4 volunteers to come with me. We're going to help these guys because they're all disabled. They were, wounded. They didn't have arms and that kind of stuff. We were going to help them get onto the helicopters and stuff, from the seats and et cetera. And one of the guys goes, and he was a Bronx warrants guy. And Chris, if you're listening, I'm telling your story. He goes, hog hunting. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, they're going to go shoot hogs. There's thousands, tens of thousands of them, and they're tearing up the land. He goes, what?
Oh.
I said, they shoot hogs? He goes, they shoot hogs? I said, well, I'm not going to shoot them. They're going to shoot them.
Oh.
And he goes, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And it was like the Twilight Zone. It was like an episode of the Twilight Zone, right from the Bronx.
I love it.
And I thought, man, welcome to the world.
Well, I once had a cop from out west say to me something like, I love it. It always stuck in my head. It was something like this. You're the kind of guy that would walk up to a cactus and ask it for some Grey Poupon. Well, I think that's pretty true of me. I definitely, because I'm so used to the city, I couldn't do it. I think I'm like roughing it. If I leave the road and go into the forest, for 1 second. So I think that's funny. But the thing with the coyote that horrifies me, Chris, is that if something, God forbid, happened to her, I keep thinking about the desert area and leaving somebody deceased, and how it only takes a couple of days for nature.
A couple hours.
Well, if you're dealing with coyote, right?
Well, no, I mean, first you're going to have the small rodents, field mice, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then it's just going to go from there. And once they get on scent, within hours, they'll disintegrate things.
Well, it's horrifying.
Yeah, I mean yeah. Have people been cleared, then found guilty before? Yes, many times. Family could still be involved. They cleared, easily go back to list. Yep, that's correct. That is possible. Could this mirror natural born killers in KND? Call it favorite love story 301 911. Call reported women screaming from moving car window. I heard about that. I saw about that one. That was kind of interesting. Nancy, home security. If so, was it turned off? I don't think she had home security, but yes, the cameras and everything like that seem to be not functioning. Dr. Gary, what percentage of psychopaths are female?
It's a harder question to answer than people think, and I would guess that as time goes on, you're seeing more sociopathic traits in females as time goes on for various cultural reasons and all. But the conservative estimate I've heard is that it's a ratio of about 6-1, with males being the 6. I mean, the fact of the matter is that there are, how do I say this? There are different presentations of how males and females react to and experience life events. I'm not so sure they're biological. I think it may be cultural and constructed. But, for just as one simple example, society is more encouraging of male aggression than female aggression and things like that. There's all kinds of different reasons for, but then again, testosterone can make someone 8 times more likely to be aggressive. It's a very, very interesting question, but the number that I generally hear is like a 6-1, where the preponderance of psychopaths is the word I'd use, leaning towards males.
Got it. Okay.
That was
3 hours.
long.
No, that was a great answer, Gary.
You're a long Gary answer. What can I say?
You're awesome.
Yeah.
You're awesome. Okay, it's we're 3 hours and 46 minutes, guys. We thank you so much for being here.
Don't you love Anne and Marie?
Oh yeah, they're great. Just great. They're seriously just, they're awesome people. We just would ask if you wouldn't mind, hit that like, subscribe, please share this around social media. Please go buy Gary's book and please go buy Anne's book. I always give these shameless plugs, but I do it because they're great people and they're amazing authors. And as you can tell, what did she say about your cranium? Earlier?
She said we had 10-pound brains.
10-pound brains.
I love her pithy version.
That's the word of the day. 10-pound brains. All-star panel tonight. We totally agree, Teresa. And take care of and Teresa's one of our mods. Her husband is an amazing human being, as well as Mimi. We're missing Mimi tonight. Her husband's a little sick. Please keep them in your prayers, and continue to take care of each other, you guys. And just remember, don't believe everything you see on social media. There's a lot more to this story. It's coming, and we're going to keep pressing forward. So with that, as they say in Hawaii, biakamai, take care of each other, and we will see you on the next one. Gary, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. I'm always here for you.
You're the best. See you in a bit.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. we're taking away, yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down, we're going away, yeah, we're going away, you and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.